This story begins at night. A huge lunar disk is located above the mountain peaks. Lighting is enough to distinguish all objects around. His radiance also disperses the darkness among the trees growing at the very foot of the mountain ridge. Suddenly, a group of people in raincoats appears. They move very quickly and make such incredible jumps that it seems as if they were soaring in the air. Between the trees, a stranger runs, wrapped in a dark cloak. Whoever it is. But he is clearly trying to hide from the pursuers. The fugitive's face is hidden behind a terrible mask of a monster with huge fangs. He moves at no less speed than his pursuers, and it seems he has a chance to escape. But one of the warriors, holding a naked blade in his hand, makes an incredible somersault and attacks him right in the jump. At this time, the fugitive looks around, and the blow falls on the ugly red mask. Closed into two parts, she falls, opening the face of her master. Even its parts lying on the ground evoke horror with a terrible grin of fangs and sharp curved horns. The fugitive shot down from the foot at the foot of the tree, carefully covering his face with his hands. The soldiers pursuing him approach closer, and he, without hiding, lifts his disfigured face to them. One of the warriors turns to him, calling the sentence to the death penalty. The fugitive is rocking in response, but he continues his speech. He calls his name, Han Queer, red, strange, not like everyone else, or the infamous Sinwa, which means connoisseur of beautiful bodies, for the abduction of beautiful people of all ages and sexes, as well as for murder due to negligent treatment of them. Muram will say the criminal to death. They offer him to say the last word. Sin Suj is not going to repent. He asks his judges that bad in a simple desire to possess beauty. His thirst for the beautiful did not calm down until his death, and even the touch of cold steel to his throat did not force him to regret. Vrive the blade, and the head of the criminal is separated from the body. After the death of Han, as if in a mockery of his dream, people who put beauty above all, Sin Sighail began to be called. Above the city of Jinan, the province of Shandong, located at the foot of the mountains and the trees drowning in the greens, the sun shines brightly. People on the street enthusiastically discuss the latest news, the main of which was the execution of a beauty lover. Someone from the crowd is interested in whether the townspeople heard what those who escaped from his paws said. They say that after the abduction he did not touch them with his finger. Today, there is only one topic for conversations, and discussion is not only on the street, but also under the roof of almost every house in the city. A man in the tavern continues to talk about Sin Sujaile. He says that the offender only looked at the captives after the abduction. His interlocutor, carefully listening to the story, replies that this is some strange entertainment. Friends decide that he was really strange. In any case, it is good that he is no longer in this world. Pouring strong drinks, they begin to discuss another topic. It turns out that the youngest daughter of the Chegel family is looking for her husband. But she has very large requests. She needs an unprecedented handsome man, and even in order to own a sword skillfully. They doubt that she can find this. One of the men says that perhaps in the city there is a guy, a supporter Sinjail. His interlocutor replies that if he also owns a sword well, then probably it is worth calling him Clinic Sinjail. They laugh and ask to bring more drinks. A guy who holds in his hand runs up to them 2 bottles ordered. He asks for forgiveness that his hands are busy and invites them to take an order. Men agree. The young man thanks their bow and, wanting to enjoy food, hurries to serve other visitors. Orders are pouring on him from all sides, but he manages to fulfill all of them without delay. Visitors are delighted with young men because he looks at him at all a boy, and he can't occupy his talent. He manages not only to carry food, but also to accompany guests in separate rooms if they demand it. The night comes, the moon appears in the sky. Visitors diverge, and the tavern closes. The male hand carefully lowers the coin into the pot. The servant, who so skillfully carried food, presses the vessel with money, rejoicing that they have accumulated so much. He hastily hides the pot to the same 2 of the same, but already full of coins. The young man, whose name is Doko Chusen, is satisfied and going to continue in the same spirit to fulfill his dream as soon as possible. He wants to open his own tavern, and even in the smallest detail represents how it will look. But so far, there is not enough money yet. The young man sits down at the table under which his accumulations are hidden. After a stressful and long day, having finally left alone, he does not know what to do. The guy's hand gropes the wooden handle and grabs it tightly. He makes a lightning punch, and the fact that in his hands the broom does not bother him. The young man smiles. He is quite pleased with his skill and strength. Doko Chusen continues training, taking attacks one by one. The broom in his hands flashes at an incredible speed. Suddenly, an impromptu weapon breaks out of the hands and hits it right on the forehead. Grasping his head with his hands, he sinks to the floor to recover. From pain, tears are full of his eyes. Suddenly, an accidentally overheard conversation of today's visitors pops up in his memory. Men discuss the youngest daughter of the Chel family. He realized that the lady likes the swordsman, but does not know what Sinzile's blade means. The guy decides, if the girl likes the master of martial arts, then he will definitely try to become him. Chusen looks out the window with longing. He dreams of an unattainable and beautiful mistress, with Ilan. The night has long come into its own. The bright moon illuminates the estate of the Chel family. In the courtyard, despite the night, a lonely female figure is visible. Movement behind her makes her stop and listen. But she does not see anyone, and thinks that it seemed to her. A warrior, moving along the roofs and alerting a girl, descends to the ground and approaches a man awaiting him. He knelt down and says that he fulfilled the order of the master. Then he asks, "Will there be more orders?" After a little pause, the man lets him go. The warrior hastily fulfills the order and immediately disappears. Having lowered his head, the man pronounces only one word, "Sorry." With Ilan, never finding a source of noise that frightened it, continues its walk. A lunar disk shines brightly in the night sky. A group of men sits in the room at the oval table. One of them addresses the chapter with the question, "Why did he collect them here?" The second person says that the Huanbo clan is only gaining strength every day, and they need to do something with it. He offers to adhere to the same strategy with a profitable marriage. Another man expressed his opinion. He believes that the son of the clan Namgun has a good reputation, and the youngest daughter of the chapter is just at a suitable age. People sitting at the table continue the conversation. One of them clarifies whether the offspring of the Namgun family, who was nicknamed the Spiritual Blade, is talking. The rest of the men decide that he will be a good party, and ask what the head of the family thinks about it. He replies that he heard them. The person whom everyone turned to, as the chapter, stands in thought at the window. He agrees with the elders. Marriage by calculating an influential family is the best choice. But Chel Chanya, the current head of the Chel family, doubts whether he can do this with Ilan. The girl with whom he decided to talk after the meeting, with tears in her eyes, says that the posthumous desire of her mother was one thing, so that her daughter herself choose her husband. The servant reports that the head of the Halmoon family arrived. The master gives an order to let him in. Men are talking, sitting at the table. Chel Chanya says that the Halmoon family is considered the best in information mining, and he is interested in everything that they know about the Huanbo clan. The guest replies that thanks to the new son-in-law, they were able to strengthen their positions. He begins to guess why he was called, and asks Chel Chanya about it. The chapter did not deny, and confirmed that he was here because of the marriage of the lady and Ilan. He manages that his guest would let rumors about it. Yes, so that they get to everyone in Shandun. The tavern is crowded again, but Doko Musin manages to fulfill all orders. Chusen, the owner and part-time and the roan of the glass of oval, calls the guy to take the food at the 8th table. The young man responds and asks to prepare another pork dunpo and 2 hot noodles for the next visitors. Chusen affectionately meets the guests, and at the next request to bring another bottle, replies that their glass is famous for its alcohol. With Ilan sitting at the table, watches him, surprised at his energy and fun. She becomes wondering if he is always like that. Meanwhile, the guy tirelessly spreads orders. The young lady continues to observe his movements with light envy. She thinks that she also wants a simple, ordinary life. She becomes sad, and she plunges into thought. The girl recalls the conversation with her father. She understands him, but she is embarrassed by the fact that although the alleged groom is from a famous family, but she never saw his face. Life in a glass goes on its own way. Visitors still demand that they bring them some dish or a drink. Chusen, stopping for a moment, is upset that lately with Ilan is always sad. Clutching the tray in his hands, he decides, if he becomes a blade Sinjil, then she will never have to saddle again. He represents how he squeezes the girl in his arms and bends to kiss her. His sweet dreams are interrupted by visitors who demand to fulfill their orders. Chusen angrily nurses a guy, asking if he wants him to carry food. He continues to swear, wondering why the servant stands like Doug, and even continues to smile. The young man asks for forgiveness and continues to work. The night comes, and people are in a hurry to be at home as soon as possible. Chusen says they worked hard today. The owner agrees, but warns that tomorrow he smiles after work, and not in its height. The guy straightens tired shoulders and sighs, complaining that he worked again today all day without a break. In response, He hears that he worked gloriously. Returning home, Musen hears how the merchant invites buyers to buy books. He assures that these are not just the techniques of owning a sword and breathing techniques, but himself. That not to eat the edition certified by the clan. He offers to buy them for only 50 silvernicks. The man says that Mangacapped, one of the most famous masters of the past, created this technique, Sword of Pakos. And he adds that the buyer will also receive a respiratory equipment from Aniclimax as a gift. The guy became interested and came closer to consider the offered goods. He sees books in which there are such knowledge necessary for him. In his thoughts, his face with Ilan pops up, and he decides that he will become a blade of Sin Sigale. The guy approaches the merchant and says that he says so that these are originals, and not just copies. But, he adds, if a man gives him a couple of books, then he will remain silent. An angry man in his hearts throws a couple of publications right in front of him. Chusen decides that they do not look in the dare horse in the teeth, and takes them. In the evening, he takes on reading. He studies the book, and thinks that although these are just copies, they are certified by the Chel clan, which means that the content should be real. He plunges into reading, especially he is interesting to the Sword of Pakos. Turning away from the book, Chusen reflects on the text read. He is trying to understand how to move, how to hold a sword, strike. He tries to remember what he read. Mentally reproduces each movement with a sword. Represents a battle. But, unfortunately, he does not understand much. The words are familiar, but he does not know what they mean. Chusen decides that all incomprehensible words will need to be asked tomorrow with the masters entering the glass. He puts aside the Sword of the Pakos and opens the second book, Aniclimax. For some time he carefully studies her, and then exclaims joyfully. It turns out that all incomprehensible words from the previous book are acupuncture points. Despite the fact that the yard is night, and tomorrow there is a difficult day, the guy rejoices. After all, in this book he found answers to all his questions. Chusen goes to bed. Falling asleep, he repeats the name with N and asks to wait for him. He dreams of books. Even in a dream, he continues to study the battle technique with a sword. The guy believes that soon his dream will come true, and he will achieve his goal, will become a blade Singiel. In a dream, he again leafed through the pages of the book Aniclimax, continuing to study acupuncture points. The young man sleeps, his hands wide open. Something begins to happen with one of them. His brush involuntarily clenches into a fist. The veins on the arm are swollen. Incomprehensible changes are becoming more and more noticeable. Vienna continues to expand. The whole body of a sleeping young man envelops a strange radiance. The transformation continues. Chusen, not suspecting that something unusual was happening to him, continues to sleep serenely. While his body is changing, he sees unusual dreams that are very difficult to distinguish from reality. The guy's hand tightly grips the handle of the sword, which he simply masterfully makes lightning movements. The young man is delighted and says that he was finally able to cut in one movement. He raises his weapons again and is violently rejoiced that he has almost become a blade Sin Siegel. Suddenly the guy finds himself in the training field, where there are many straw-stuffed animals. He is upset, realizing that this is just a dream. But then he still resolves and takes a step forward. Chusen raises the blade and becomes in a combat position. He believes that it doesn't matter to him a dream or reality, and decisively waves a sword. Without difficulty, he cuts off the hand of a scarecrow in front of him. He himself did not expect such agility from himself. The young man is ready for anything, just to become a blade Sinzile and get closer to Madame and Ilan. Morning comes. Chusen wakes up. He feels himself quite vigorous, and rejoices that he has so well soldered. He was born again. But an unexpected thought stops him. The young man cannot understand why he feels so well if he read all night, and slept with strength for 2 hours. However, he did not think for long. Hearing how someone is naughty, he turns around, and immediately falls into the arms of 2 soldiers who, with joyful screams, attacked him. The guy with a smile notices that the boys in the morning are cheerful and full of strength. Before him, smiling, the brothers are standing. The eldest is Jan Miso, and the youngest is Jan Horan. The woman who approached them called the guys. With joyful cries, they rushed to their mother. The young man politely greeted and asked her how they slept. Salt the South answered, "Fine," and asked if the guy was in the tavern. She advised him to run and put herself in order while she takes care of the boys. Chusen was surprised that they got up so early, because yesterday they probably returned quite late. The woman agreed with him and complained that she had a lot of things, so today she knocked out the time in the morning to go to the market. She wants to buy clothes for children. The young man replied that she was jealous of her salary, To which Salt Satya said that he also earns well, and she knows that the guy has accumulated on his own glass. The woman added that if he needs money then he can always turn to her. She also said that for him she always has coins. The young man looked at her with gratitude, but did not have time to answer anything. Salt Satya says that he should run, otherwise he will be late for work. He manages to come on time in the tavern. But the day does not begin as usual, and he opens his eyes in surprise, trying to understand what happened. Doko Chusen is perplexed on the threshold of a glass. Sad guys are sitting at the table, and an unusually dull atmosphere reigns in the hall. He is interested in what happened. One of them replies that in the morning everything goes along an inclined plane. The owner entwines the young man, saying that he is just in time, and they need to discuss something. Doko Musen asks him what happened, and the man tells him that the owner of the institution where the guys worked escaped at night. A frustrated young man sits at the table. Chusen adds that the villain not only escaped, but also took with him all the values of visitors, and now all the guys were left without work. The owner of the glass, a little silent, and added that he thought here and made a decision. He is interested in the young man whether they can take their guys to work, and whether he can learn them. Doko Musen turns around and looks at the sight that appeared before him. The sad guys are sitting silently at the tables. They do not know what to do next. The young man exclaims that it is not the time to dissolve Nuni. He tells them to quickly get to work, because the glass will open soon. The owner with a smile looks at the diverging servant, and thinks that Doko is very glorious, and it was not for nothing that he chose him. The young man rejoices in such luck because now he will have time for practice. At night, he returns from work. Doko Chusen cannot understand why the guys who always worked as waiters brought him so much trouble. He plans to knock out his time for training tomorrow. He is surprised that after such a busy working day, he was not tired of a bit. Usually he walked home like a lead, and now he feels light as a feather. It pleases him. After all, now he has more strength left for training. He recalls that he forgot to buy a wooden sword. Suddenly a scream that has been heard behind him makes him stop. Doko Chusen is interested in turning out and tries to consider what is happening. A scream flashes over the street. Someone desperately calls for help. The young man understands that the woman unknown to him was in trouble, and deciding that this has nothing to do with him, he turns away to continue his journey. His leg almost steps on some strange object. He lifts him and, having looked, understands that this is a hair clip. Several men are trying to calm the girl calling for help. One of the attackers reproaches the other that he is not even able to make a woman silence. His friend recommends him to do it himself. The sobbing girl, without losing hope, continues to beg for help loudly. The striker does not stand on ceremony with her, and crudely screams at her. Doko Chusen rushes to the rescue with all legs. He sees how some Verzel grabbed the frightened Salt of the South by the hand. A few days ago, the best cabaret in the city of Jinan. In the middle of a large room is a table on which there are different dishes and jugs with drinks. Men are sitting around him. Salt is dancing with the front ones. 2 more girls accompany her. The dancer hears a conversation between men. They say that it is not for nothing that the people are like such a rumor that, without seeing the girls from Honshwar, you should not even stutter about the fact that you have known the taste of entertainment. They are unanimous in the opinion that she is best. 2 people sitting at the far table are quietly talking. One of them is disappointed because they have no money, and they cannot even invite her to the table. His interlocutor replies that this never stopped them. A friend doubts his ability to think sensibly, but his friend replies that since she is the best in Honshwar, it will not follow the elders if they ask her. Men come to an agreement. They are sure that she has no excuses to refuse martial arts masters. Doko Musen is in a hurry to help a woman who fell into the hands of villains. Men are unhappy, but they do not perceive the young man seriously. The guy is determined and demands to release Salt to Yukva. He flies on one of the attackers with a run, forcing him to recover from his victim with curses. Men showered him with insults. One of them says that he is not the first saint to die before their eyes. Doko Gusan stands between men and a woman, covering her with himself. He is determined. The guy, turning to the Salt of Yuhui, is interested in is everything all right with her? A woman cannot say a word from excitement, but she recognizes the boy and pronounces his name. He tells her that he will take the attackers, and she should run. Salt the South Assembly objects. She says that he alone will not cope. She offers to run together, but he refuses. The young man explains, if they run together, then they will be immediately seized. It will be better if she calls someone to help while he distracts them. One of the men grumbles with displeasure, something about the fact that young animals have no manners. Chusen hands a woman a hairpin that he had previously found. Giving her a jewelry, he says that if something happens to her, how he later looked into the eyes of Horan and Miso. The young man recalls how happy the boys were when they chose this hairpin together. He asks if she understood him well and says that no words are needed anymore. A woman with tears in her eyes looks at her defender and hesitantly pronounces his name. She cannot decide to run and leave him alone against two bandits. Realizing that she has no choice, she still turns around and runs with all her legs. But men do not want to miss their victim and decide to share. One of them wants to catch a fugitive, and the second meanwhile should deal with the guy. Brazil, showered the guy with insults, immediately rushes into the attack, confident that she would easily cope with him. The young man, although scared, is not going to retreat. He is determined, and when it already seemed that a huge fist of a man would drive him off his feet, he easily avoids a blow. The striker is amazed at his dexterity, but quickly comes to his senses. He tells the young man that he is only capable of dodging. Chusen himself is amazed at his own resourcefulness and cannot believe what is happening. The man rushes at him again, and the guy understands that he is more than seriously configured. It seems to him that he will just kill him now. It depends on how the enemy is approaching. The young man is surprised at how he moves sluggishly. After all, he easily avoids his blows. The fist of a man crashes into the wall, leaving an impressive dent in it. Chusen is amazed that his enemy fists can cause such huge damage. He is afraid to even imagine what will happen if he misses at least one blow. Suddenly, a striking thought comes into his head. He is overshadowed that these are not slow blows, but simply an incredibly fast reaction. The guy immediately felt much more confident. He again managed to easily avoid another blow. His enemy has already begun to lose his temper. Meanwhile, his friend, turning around, saw that he could not cope with the guy. He is angry and perplexed. He is annoyed by the fact that a friend cannot calm the young man. The man returns, deciding to personally deal with the guy, since the friend was so inept. He grabs the knife and rushes at Gusun, wanting to kill him in place. But the guy sees his attempt and again easily evades. He is surprised to understand that they are too slow for him, so he has nothing to fear. Then he decides to attack himself. His fist crashes right into the jaw of an armed enemy. The blow is so strong that he immediately falls to the ground. A guy inspired by the victory is preparing to deal with the second bandit. The affected man, seeing a defeated friend, cannot believe his eyes. He believes that the young man hid his strength and is interested in which fraction he is. A friend asks him to shut up. He is sure that this is an accident, and he says he just relaxed. What a man, quite reasonably, is interested in, it was necessary to relax just as to be bored. Chusen looks at his own fist with disbelief. He himself hardly believes that he managed to dump a sufficiently strong man. The guy does not know what is happening to him and is surprised by his capabilities. His opponents are again on his feet and are preparing to attack together. They threaten to kill the young man. One of them says that when he meets the Lord of the Afterlife, let him tell him that the guy was sent to him by the great masters from the Black Dragon sect, an embittered man, promising the young man a quick death, prepared for an attack. Chusen was surprised that his opponents are not just local bandits, but a master. A Black Dragon is one of the Black Blade gangs operating in Jinan, although they call themselves the Warriors of Murim, but in fact are no different from ordinary thieves and killers. Brazil, waving huge fists, rushes at the young man, obviously wanting to kill him. But Musin without much difficulty avoids the attack, and delivers a response, more crushing, who knocked down the villain from his feet. The young man is not going to retreat. He understands that no matter how bad the reputation of the people who attacked him was, they cannot cope with him. Its speed is simply amazing, and opponents will not be able to do anything with such slow blows. The bandits clearly decided to deal with him, and do not stop attacking the guy. Verzila again tries to hit him, confident that his strength decides everything. But Chusen only recedes a little, and the man misses again. The guy decides to attack in response. He delivers a crushing blow, saying, "Let's see how strong you are here." The armed bandit squeezes his teeth with anger. He did not expect the guy so easily cope with Verzila, much superior to him in force. He rushes at the guy, screaming that it is time to let him go out. Chusen feverishly thinks what to do because he is as slow as they are. But he has nowhere to retreat. He understands that he can only defend himself. He manages to grab the attacker by the hand in which he squeezes the knife. And he, without regret, putting all his strength into a blow, beats the bandit directly in the face with his fist. The man flies away a few steps back and falls to the ground. His friend, struck by the power of Gusun, sinks in front of him on one knee. The defeated enemy is trying to rise, but he does it well. Unable to get up, he sinks to the ground with a groan. Verzila, who recognized their crushing defeat, cannot believe what is happening. He says that this is all complete nonsense, and this cannot be. Having put a friend on his shoulders, he retires. But turning around, threatens the guy. He says that he will not defeat them all. The young man looks after them, is not going to respond to threats. He only pronounces quietly, "Come," and adds that there are too many words, as for those who leave holding their tail. The guy is glad that he learned the bandits, but was surprised by the changes that had happened to him. He looks at his hands and tries to understand what happened. Saltsalia runs to him from all legs. She gave help. They return to the cabar, discussing the attackers on the way. The woman remembered that the day before they came to them. Pek Mien, an employee Hanshwar, putting a guy on a chair, examines him to make sure that he was not wounded. She is very angry with those who tried to harm her friend, and cringes them with insults. But then she was embarrassedly silent, deciding that she had a conversation too much. Doko Muso sadly thinks that she does not see a man in him at all. Pek Mienis is surprised to notice that the young man has no wounds. Salt the South in the way asks for excitedly whether this is true. The girl confirms, adding at the same time that there are not even bruises, as if he hadn't fought at all. A woman who had to survive too much this evening sighs in relief. She tells the guy that she does not know what she would do if something had happened to him. She asks if he understands that these were terrible people. The young man, continuing to sit in a chair, decides to admit how everything was actually. He says that when he heard a scream, it seemed to him that he was climbing his business. He just wanted to pass by. He was even a little scared. The woman looks at him, opening her eyes wide. He adds that he then saw her hairpin. He did not even know whether it knew or not, but simply could not escape. He immediately thought about her children. Salt Soch, bowing her head, thanked her savior. Park Mien sighed, and said that there is a very interesting atmosphere. And then she suggested that there was something between them. But both resolutely denied this. The woman added that he likes a completely different person. And the guy asked them to stop such conversations. Meanwhile, the night finally entered into its own, and the city plunged into silence. Doko Musen holds in his hands a training sword, for which he paid 20 silvernicks, and admires his shape. He asks a wooden weapon to help him until he becomes the best blade Sinjil in the world. Putting a chair in front of him, the guy decides to start with the first chapter, and study the wing of the white crow. He does everything as it is written in the textbook, and makes a wide wave. Doko Chusen freezes for a moment in bewilderment. He is trying to understand what is happening again. It seems strange to him, both his behavior and his sensations. He feels that something has changed dramatically in him. The guy again repeats the technique that has just been tested. And again he thinks about the fact that he is doing with a wooden sword for the first time today. But his sensations are strange. He again makes a swing. He has the feeling that he had waved his whole life with a sword. He likes this feeling, and he continues to exercise. Doko Chusen is delighted. He likes what he is doing. He is sure that he will become the best. The young man continues to exercise, not noticing that they are watching him. A witness to his training was an ancient old man who, squatting, silently looks at the guy. An elderly man with gray, bushy eyebrows hiding his eyes sits on a wooden bridge, his legs pressed, and clutching a vessel to him. He slowly brings a bottle to his lips and takes several sips. Nehoga Mansan, the elder of the Kaban group, broke away from the vessel and, with a sigh, was disappointedly complained that nothing interesting had happened again today. Suddenly, some sounds attracted the attention of the old man, tearing him off from thoughts. He became interested in those who could scream at such an exorbitant hour, and began to look for a source of noise. Nehoga Mansan, climbing the railing of the bridge, saw a young man who was training with a sword. He was clearly interested in the sight that appeared before him. One of his eyebrow raised, and opened an eye glowing with an unkind yellow light. After watching the guy for a while, the old man decided that apparently he recently took up the sword. Novogimensen carefully watches every movement of Doko Gusen, who, not noticing anything around, continues training. With incredible speed, he rotates with a sword, trying to master the technique read in the book. The young man continues exercises, and Noga-Mansan notes that with every wave his blow is getting better and better. The old man is clearly struck by the talent of a young man and continues to be interested in observing. He is surprised that the guy repeated the reception only a couple of times, and certainly did not hone it for a long time. He cannot understand how this is possible. Doko Chusen continues to engage in selflessly. The sword in his hands rotates at an incredible speed. But one unsuccessful movement, and the blade breaks out of his hands and flies to the side. Nahog Mansan is unpleasantly struck by his miss, and loses interest in his studies. The old man sighs. He thought that most likely the guy studied with a military man who retired due to injury. Doko Chusen is worried about the missed miss, because before that he did everything perfectly. Nohoge-man-san turns away. He believes that tonight a young man can only dream of a sword ownership. Among the students of Kiban, he thinks, there are such a dime a dozen. He is no longer interested in the guy, and he returns to his former place. He grins displeasedly that while he was waiting for a certain Khan Il-san, he had all the bones. But although the spectacle was not bad, not expecting to see something interesting anymore, he again leads the bottle. The man who appeared at this time, with respect for the old man, says that you need to let the guys look and search. Nehoge-man-san is interested in why. Have something curious for them appeared? The person says that Khan Il-san took out the main manuscript of the devilish swordsman. This was told by the tramp by Junyuan. In this valuable book, there is a treasure map that only the Chagall clan can decipher. So he will definitely go to Jinan. There are also rumors that the Kaomun clan is interested in this paper. The old man thoughtfully says that people from this clan, hearing about money to sit folding his hands, will not. A flying coin loudly hit the flooring. Some passerby threw them money. Men thanked him, wishing him many years of life. Nehoge-man-san tells his interlocutor that although they are poor, but you should not get hung up with money. The old man explains that Kaban is the best information miners in all of Junyuan, and their own clan is not chasing wealth. Only justice is important to them. His interlocutor is called to personally go to Jinan. The old man, having put on the fact that he was already walking up today, decides that he should rest. Dako Chusen is still acutely experiencing his failure. He examines his hand and says that he forgot the most important thing. He recalls how, in a fight with the bandits who attacked the Salt of the South, one of the villains slightly cut his palm. The guy thinks that after all, it was not necessary to conceal this wound from Mian. He looks at his hand, carefully looking at the injury. The cut crossing his palm was already a little dragging on, and does not resemble a fresh wound at all. He is trying to comprehend what is happening, and an unexpected thought comes into his head. The young man decides that this is one of those strange changes in his body, which he only recently began to notice. The blinding light makes the guy involuntarily throwing his hand in an attempt to protect his eyes. With surprise, he looks towards the mountains and understands that the sun has already risen. He is amazed that his training was so dragged out, and time flew by no noticeably. The young man decides that it is time to finish with exercises, and it is necessary to rinse. He also thinks that before work you need to wrap the wound at least a bandage. Khan Il-san, a black toe man in a long fluttering cloak, moves to Jinan with incredible speed. At dawn, he is already standing at the top of the mountain and looks at the city spreading at the foot. The man is clearly for the first time, and he is all interested here. In his hands he carefully squeezes the scroll. It is clear that he is very valuable to him. Dako Chusen continues to train hard. For classes, he uses every free minute. He wants to achieve his goal as soon as possible. Today, the young man masters the technique of owning a sword in his room. Soon he lowers the sword, whose tip with a quiet knock concerns the floor. He sits down on the bed and complains that he was training quite a bit, and his strength was already exhausted. All night went into practice, but he mastered only the foundations. But most of all, he is embarrassed by how he will master the inner strength. His hand reaches for the book, where the technique he needs is described. He sits in the lotus pose, crossing his legs and resting his hands in front of him. The young man is trying to follow what he read. He wants to feel chi energy and use it, let go of the old one, and let in a new one. He does everything as indicated in the book. First exhales the air, getting rid of the cargo of the past, and then inhales, letting in the new one. In bewilderment, the guy freezes. He does not understand what he is doing. He is surprised that it was precisely the breath that was. A disappointed cry of Dokoguson is heard from the house. He is not clear to him, and he prefers to practice the sword before work. Watching Khan Il-san is already in the city. Slowly he walks around the market, listening to the conversations of merchants. But his calm is clearly ostentatious. The man vigilantly monitors everything that is happening around. A crowd of people gathered near the jeweler's tray, considering the decorations laid out on it. People scurry around, rushing each in their own business, and paying little attention to others. But some poorly dressed man still notices Khan Il-san. He was interested in what exactly this obviously noble person in Satkan, a national Korean headdress, mode. And, without hiding, he speaks about it publicly. Without turning, the man asks if he is talking about him. The beggar replies that only thieves, walking around the market, mow on everyone in a row and do not buy anything. And he asked, "Is he wrong?" Khan Ilsan, unkindly flashing his eyes, replies that they pay their lives for a tongue without bones, but looking at the man and noting 2 knots on his belt, he says that however, he is right. He asks if he had ever seen a thief gives alms. The beggar laughs, and replies that there was still no in this world, neither in the sky, nor on the ground, the thieves that sacrifice the poor. Khan Ilsan throws a coin directly into the hands of a man. He catches her. He scatters in thanks, and says that the master be careful on the way. Khan Ilsan, laughing, calls him a talker. A man, pleased with himself, turns away and continues his way. He thinks that the beggar has 2 knots on his belt. This is a sign of Kiban. He almost failed, so their clan has already taken measures. A scroll is hidden behind his belt. He wants to check him for authenticity and quickly get out of the city. Khan Ilsan reflects that he is not going to spend his time on false feelings and other games. He finally got a chance to take possession of the power of the devilish swordsman who destroyed the old school. While he was thinking about his plans, his legs lead him to the tavern. On the threshold of the institution, a man appears in a black cloak and headdress. Chusen welcomes the visitor and offers to hold him. Khan Ilsan asks the guy correctly that this is an inn, and he confirms that everything is right. He adds that their institution is considered the best in the city. The man interrupts him, not wanting to continue the conversation, and throws him a coin. He says that he did not sleep all night, and he asks to give him the best room. Doko Muso smiles and offers the guest to go upstairs. Khan Ilsan thinks that Oval really looks the best in the city. He was not deceived. Despite the later time, there are a lot of people in the hall. All the tables are clogged. The man continues to think that perhaps Kaban would not hide in such a place. His thoughts are interrupted by the young man's voice, offering to enter the room provided to him. The guy says that a beautiful look opens from here. Now is the time later, but he still recommends that he look. If he needs something, let him call the bell 3 times. Khan Ilsan asks not to disturb him if he himself does not ask for something. He wants to sleep in silence. Chusen politely replies that he will transfer his request to the other employees, and he wishes him a good rest. The man is pleasantly surprised. He likes the politeness and manners of the guy. But when the young man turned to leave, Khan Ilsan freezes in shock, looking at his posture. Watching the guy after, he is trying to understand how this could happen. For a moment before his eyes, the guy's naked back rises, and he understands that in front of him is not just a person, but a heavenly container of martial arts. He was not able to move, stunned by his discovery. A man stands, holding a hat in his hands, trying to gather his thoughts. An unexpected noise distracts him, and, looking down through the railing, he asks to behave quieter, and also forbids employees to clean up in the hall. The servant, surprised by the request of the guest, turns to Chusen. But he replies that he can finish the cleaning later, at lunchtime. The guy objects that then there will be even more people, and the order must be put before lunch. Khan Ilsan continues to watch the young men, thinking that perhaps it just seemed to him. Chusen explains to the cleaner that the guest asked not to make noise, but the guy continues to persist. He believes that it is better to wash the floor now, while they have few visitors. The young man replies that this is not a problem. The tree from which the floorboards are made have a strong smell. The owner paid a tidy amount for them. These boards emit the aroma that drowses the smell of food when water enters it. Khan Ilsan, who did not take the eyes of the young man, and carefully listening to the conversation, decides that he was still not mistaken. This is exactly him, but this cannot be. Chusen meanwhile continues to tell that when it smells delicious, they should not wet the floorboards. The cleaner is confused by the back of the head, and says that he did not know this. Khan Ilsan continues to look at the young man inseparably. He cannot believe that he sees him, carrying the power of ideal balance. A shocked man stands so, looking down at the talking guys. He still cannot believe what is happening. He is amazed that a simple employee of the inn was such an unusual person. The heavenly container of martial arts is a body that descended from heaven to achieve all the extremes of combat skill, carrying the power of ideal balance. In the entire history of martial arts, only 3 people suffered this force. He continues to look at the guy, unable to overcome his doubts. He thinks that if he is mistaken, then how to explain why this body has reached such an ideal balance. Musan, meanwhile, as usual, cheerfully and tirelessly spreads the ordered dishes. Visitors to the glass are satisfied with the fact that there are more workers here. The young man turns around, hurrying to greet the next visitor, but freezes, as if struck by thunder. In front of him is Mrs. with Ilan. A smiling girl welcomes him. She looks at him and notices that he, as usual, is vigorous. and it's just nice to look at it. Chusen replies that he is lost when he hears such words from her. He asks what the girl wishes. She very politely asks her to bring her luncheon tea. The young man still can't take her eyes off the beauty, and then offers her to go upstairs, because there is better lighting. Looking at with Ilan, the young man thinks that luncheon tea is a drink that is chosen to relieve soul, and he does not know how to help her and can only smile. The guy, dissatisfied with himself, leads the girl at her table. All this time, Il-san carefully watches him. The man, turning to the servant standing below, asks him to bring him tea. With Ilan, he sits at the table by the window, waiting for her order to bring her order. Il-san, looking at her, thinks about how charming she is. He continues to reflect, and comes to the conclusion that it should be with Ilan, that girl from the noble family of Chel. The man recalls that after the death of his wife, his father raised her, protecting him like an apple. But he doubts a little and perplexed, because he is sure that the people of the Chel family know how to recognize commoners. Musen is in a hurry to the girl. He says that he brought her favorite sweets. The girl thanks the helpful guy, and Il-san, looking at them, thinks that no one has recognized his strength. Something is wrong here. The guy with a joyful smile holds out a tray with sweets sitting at the table. The man continues to look at him, trying to understand whether he was mistaken or not. Meanwhile smiles, trying to please and appeal to the lady with Ilan. Il-san decides to go to his room and rest properly. He believes that it is quite possible. This is just a talented guy. He probably was too tired of the trip. The man decides that you need to return and think about what to do next. With Ilan looking at the guy, he asks what it is on his left cheek. The guy, who did not expect to hear this from her, is confusedly repeated by her words. She reaches out to his face. Their eyes meet. They freeze for a moment. She takes off a stuck seed from his cheek and says that it is sesame. A long day came to an end. The night comes. The villains, with whom Chusen fought yesterday, are on their knees, dropping their heads. A huge and strong man rises above them, whose face is in the shade. Only one eye burns with an unkind red flame. Turning to the bandits serving before him, he says that if they do not lie, then in the city there is someone who could defeat his guys. Friends are trying to justify themselves, saying that although he knew who they were, but ignored it. They ask to punish him. One of the bandits adds that if you do nothing, then people will look at the black dragon with a mockery. He begs an older brother to help them. The one to whom they turn to thoughtfully drum his fingers on the armrest of the chair on which he sits. Thinking, he says that he agrees, one cannot allow people to look down on them. Friends, who perked up, anticipate an imminent reprisal against a guy. The red-eyed giant rose from his chair and with a wave of his hand, said that he would start with those who were to blame. His huge fist falls on one of the bandits. The blow is so strong that the one like a feather flies to the wall. The second villain falls to the floor and bows low in front of the angry master. He begins to pray for mercy, and admits that he made a mistake. A man puts his leg on the bandit's head, tightly pressing her to the floor. He says that those who denigrated the name of the Black Dragon cannot be forgiven, even if it is one of them. The night starry sky covers the mountains with a dome, at the foot of which the city of Jinan is located. Chusen continues training. In the afternoon he is busy at work, so he can only study at night. He carefully hones every movement. The young man masterfully controls the sword, carefully mastering the technique set forth in the book. Clutching a wooden sword tightly in his hand, he lunges after lunge. But his thoughts are busy with memories of today. With En, she took off the sesame seed from his cheek. He was terribly embarrassed, and began to say something incredibly about cookies with sesame seeds, and then tried to escape. She, smiling, asked him not to be embarrassed, because everything happens in life. Own oversight leads him to rage, and movements are accelerated. He rotates with his sword so quickly that it is impossible to keep track of his movements. He does not notice that someone is watching his training. Two villains, thoroughly battered after punishment, are quietly talking. One of them says that now it is clear why the guy beat them, because he is engaged in martial arts. The second agrees with him. The giant's hand lies on the bandit's head, squeezing her with force. He tells the man that some boy beat him, and he also makes excuses. He asks for forgiveness, and the red-eyed giant says that now he will not be so ashamed to kill the guy, since he is studying military equipment. Chusen sits down, crossing his legs and closing his eyes. He tries to concentrate on martial arts and cleanse his head, but he doesn't succeed, because he only thinks about what happened during the day. And as the girl's hand touched his cheeks, suddenly he feels that he is not alone, and someone is behind him. He turns around and asks, "Who is here?" But instead of an answer, the giant's sword collapses to him. The young man barely manages to bounce. He is dumbfounded. After all, the person who attacked him has an amazing force. With one blow, he crushed boulders into pieces. The man understands that the guy is as smart as his subordinate said, but he is so confident in his victory that it even amuses him. Hike Undo, the head of the Black Dragon, believes that if he easily caught a guy he called him a rat, then it would not be interesting. Doko Musen had already recovered a little, and looked appraisingly at the man who attacked him. The young man did not endure the insult and replied that if he is rat, then a man is the same rabble as those who follow him on the heels. The giant clearly did not expect such courage from the guy. He is furious, and shouts that the young man was not enough to humiliate his people, so he also insults him. Not wanting to continue the conversation anymore, and showering the enemy with curses, he rushed into battle. Doko Chusen understands that the man is fast enough. Swinging, the giant hatches the sword on the guy's head, but he manages to evade. The angry Hike Undo says that perhaps he is just a rat who is afraid of a sword of some rabble. He adds that enough to talk, it's time for the guy to meet his blade. Doko Chusen does not know what to do. After all, if he uses his wooden sword, then he will simply turn into dust. Meanwhile, Hike Undo continues to mock him, saying that he is afraid of his sword. He again attacks the guy, telling him that he will be enough to twitch. But the young man once again cleverly leaves the blow. The head of the Black Dragon is furious. He cannot be patient to deal with the guy. But Doko Chusen also mocks him. He tells the giant that he so desperately waves his sword, like his life at a stake. Hike Undo beside himself with anger. He is outraged by the behavior of the guy and his own impotence. The man furiously waving his sword, and the guy, deftly evading, comments on his blows. The head of the Black Dragon stops to take a breath. He again rushes at the guy, screaming, which, if he caught, will not let go. Two villains standing aside and watching the battle rejoice and say that the young man is already a dead man. After all, no one has left alive from his older brother. Doko Chusen, clutching his sword in his hands, froze in place. He is all tense, fragmentary thoughts flash in his head a little more. A little more. The sword with incredible force falls to the ground. The man again furiously waves his sword. His opponent retreats. Hike Undo is beside himself with anger. He wants to get rid of a guy as soon as possible. Doko Chusen does not know what to do. If you try to block the blow, then the head of the Black Dragons will sweep it with the sword. No, this is not a way out. He is trying to figure out how to defend himself. The men's attacks are too fast and chaotic. In this situation, it is very difficult to counterattack. He really wants the power that helped him last time to appear again. Hike Undo once again rapidly attacks. His eyes are filled with rage, and movements are extremely fast. Doko Chusen understands that there is nowhere to retreat, but he does not know what to do. The enemy's sword whistled over the head of the young man. Once again he managed to recover literally in the last moment, and again escaped, it would seem, inevitable death. Another wave of a blade, and again failure. The man is angry. He does not understand why he does not manage to defeat his opponent. He attacks again and again, but the guy moves so quickly that at some point it seems that he manages to bifurcate. Hike Undo makes another attempt. He is sure that he is a millimeter from hitting. A little more, and the enemy will be defeated. He threatens to chop again and again until he destroys the young man. Doko Chusen is no longer trying to dodge. He resolutely runs towards the man. And although in his hands there is just a wooden sword, he is frozen to resist his formidable opponent. The bandits are fascinatedly watching the progress of the battle. The leader heated by the battle seems to them formidable and invincible. Doko Chusen once again hardly avoids a crushing blow. The head of the Black Dragons turns to his minions and asks them what they are doing and why they stand like idols. Friends, looking afraid at him, say that he himself ordered them not to intervene. Hike Undo screams at them. He demands that they immobilize the guy, otherwise he is the first to stick them. Hymens rush to his aid. Now the guy is surrounded. Doko Chusen is puzzled. He understands that he will no longer be able to dodge. The man is looking forward to the victory and shouts to the guy so that he does not yawn around. Hike Undo is sure that the enemy is ended. The young man, grabbing his sword with both hands, froze and prepared for a blow. He stands and waits, mentally asking everything to end as soon as possible. The man in the jump waves his sword and hatches a blow to the guy standing in front of him. But Doko Chusen suddenly realizes that he had slowed down. Watching how awkwardly the enemy moves, the young man chooses how to counterattack it. He decides that of all techniques, it will be the one where the movements are the least. Doko Chusen opens his choice on the technique of the Light of the White Crow. The young man fearlessly rushes forward. He does not bother him at all that the enemy is several times superior to him in growth and strength. He hits the man in the chest, and he drops his weapon. The surprised cries of his minions are heard on the side. The guy raises his hand holding a wooden sword for another blow. Hick Undo, heading the Black Dragon clan, is ingloriously defeated to the ground. His friends are standing, as struck by thunder. They cannot believe their eyes. The man lies with his hands wide. Doko Chusen stands in a half-broth, trying not to let all opponents out of sight. The bandits hesitantly trample on the spot. The guy throws his sword on his shoulder and turns to them. He asks them if they want to continue the battle. Hike Undo is not able to rise, and lies on the ground, his hands limp. Groundly flashing his eyes, Doko Chusen turns to the bandits standing nearby. Bednard men cannot believe that their formidable older brother, as they call him, was defeated. The guy again turns to the shocked incident to the bandits. He is interested in whether they want to continue the battle. But one of the men categorically refuses, admitting that they lost. The young man recommends taking his leader to them and fail. Doko Chusen stands, throwing his sword on his shoulder, and watches what is happening. The bandits, grumbling and swearing, are trying to raise Hick Undo. At the same time, one of them, not embarrassed in expressions, comments that their leader is too heavy. And the other is afraid that he can hear it. The young man who watches them says that if they still catch his eye, they will not collect the teeth. Finally, having taken the defeated giant on their shoulders, the bandits are left. At the same time, they apologize and thank the young man, calling him a fry. For this time they were lucky to leave without prejudice to their health. Doko Chusen stands motionless, looking after the retreating men. He cannot believe that everything has already ended, and he remained intact and unharmed. A wooden sword with a knock falls to the ground. The young men are bending, and he, having knelt down, begins to laugh wildly. Continuing to laugh, he says he was confident in defeat. The guy complains that he cannot even move. There is no strength left at all. Suddenly he recalls how the bandits in parting called him a fry. Sitting on the ground, Doko Musen asks himself a question. Is he a warrior? But having thought a little, he decides that the feats for him are already familiar, which means that he has already become a warrior of Murim. He recalls the conversation in the glass, from which he then found out that the warrior of Murim is the one who survives, even facing his face with death. He continues to think about the fact that then he took this as a joke. But Madame and Ian lives in such a world. He again recalls the girl, and wonders why she looks so distant, and why she has such a sad face. His hand clenches into a fist. He thinks that he wants to become stronger. The guy seeks to become so strong as to be able to protect it. He decides that at all costs will become the best sword Sinjil. Looking at the sword lying nearby, he sighs and says that sooner or later he will still be able to get up. Morning comes in the city and a new bustle day begins. Doko Musen asks Sol South what to do to become stronger. A young woman looks at him in surprise. She asks why he starts such conversations. She thought that he just called her for tea. The young man decides to tell her everything that happened to him. Salt the South laughs and says that it looks like it is so. To regret money for training, and to master everything yourself. She floods with laughter, and the guy is already regretting his decision to tell her everything. The woman says that in general, she understood everything. And then he invites him to listen to the story of his husband. The guy agrees to listen to her story. Salt Saush tells about her husband. No one knows, he is alive or dead. But in the whole of Shandun you can't find someone who does not know about Yana from Hebei with a spear. He is very famous. Suddenly a woman falls silent in a half, nervously squeezing her fingers. She thinks, not knowing where to start. The guy sits at the table, looking scattered somewhere into the distance. Friends standing in front of him were talking about the fact that they did not even think that a school of martial arts would be in such a wilderness. They mock, and they say that they are unlikely to teach something here. Usually everyone goes to Enho. A person sitting at the table replies that they need to take the line in Enho. If they are late again, you will have to wait a very long time. And he agrees that they are right. No one will want to engage in such a place. Suddenly he hears the question addressed to him. Is the Chandan school here? The guy smiles and welcomes the approaching person. He wants to start with the performance, and talk about the specialists who teach here, but they interrupt him at half-word. Doko Chusen says that he did not come to submit an application. The guy looks at him perplexedly. His face becomes evil, and he says that in this case he fails. But the young man replies that he came to meet with the teacher, Chojed. Grubian immediately changes his tone, and he is pleased to be interested in where he knows the Mr. Teacher. Doko Chusen replies that they are unfamiliar. The guy clarifies. Perhaps they have a meeting? The young man responds negatively to his assumption. Then the guy asks why he then came at all. Doko Chusen recalls yesterday's conversation with Sol South. She said that her husband always said that in battle, the victory for those who are more training. The woman recalled that he always pointed to other warriors to their mistakes, because of which they often attacked him. But, she added, as soon as he began to train. The woman did not finish the phrase, fell silent, and, having drank tea from her cup, continued. He felt his skills grew. The guy asked how to provoke a man who does not want to fight. The woman laughed, and said that she also asked her husband such a question. And then I added, now repeat after me. But a rude shout interrupted his memories, and forced Gusen to return to reality. The guy standing opposite him repeated the question. Why is he looking for Chuenged? At first, the young man hesitated, as if not knowing what to answer. And then he strongly said that he came here to look at the techniques of this man. On the training ground of senior fighters of the Chondan school are armed people. The senior mentor of Chondan gives them a team. He says that there will be no breakthrough. They must train hard. Suddenly, someone is hiding a man, and he is forced to break away from his occupation. In front of him stands a breathless guy. The mentor asks what brought him here at such a time. He, with difficulty pronouncing words from behind the breaths, replies that the matter is serious. He quietly whispers something in his ear. He listens carefully. Suddenly his face is overwhelmed by rage. He is clearly outraged. The man is interested in why this impudent decided to test him. Chusen stands serene, relying on his sword. He is absolutely calm, and is ready for any turn of events. Pupils whisper among themselves. They say that some guy appeared at school and dared to go out to battle with a mentor. One of them cannot even believe it, and the second adds that, it seems, he is not 20 years old. They doubt that such a young man provokes the elders. They decide that he is crazy, and want to go to see how much. 2 other guys also want to go to the daredevil, but they doubt whether the mentor will be angry. Students crowded at the entrance to the courtyard of the school. They admire the guy. They are surprised that he evades all the attacks of the mentor. The man beats with his sword, but the young man, only slightly deviating to the side, leaves from the blow. The blade flashes literally at his very nose, without causing him any harm. The battle continues. The speed of opponents is simply amazing. Chusen manages to strike an opponent. He is satisfied with himself and thinks that the game is worth the candle. The face of a man, accustomed to victories, will be vigorous with rage. An angry mentor, raising his sword, rushes forward. The young man mentally encourages himself. He understands. If he misses the blow, then he will be very bad. The man is already very close, and it seems that now he will probably deal with the insolent who dared to challenge him. But when he was already fully convinced of victory, the young man jumps to the side. He makes just an incredible somersault, and the mentor is amazed at his fingering and resourcefulness. He again waves his sword, while thinking that the guy's skills are a maximum at the level of a senior student or younger mentor. But still something confuses him. The man is surprised that his blade has never hooked the young man. Chusen attacks the enemy, aiming at his chest with his sword. The man at the last moment manages to parry the blow. The mentor is amazed that there is nothing special in the skills of owning the enemy's sword, but the power of his blow is such that his hands are shaking. Chusen continues to attack. His opponent is forced to defend himself. Finally, it seems to the man that he found a gap in defense of the enemy. He rejoices that he opened his center. He fiercely rushes forward, but the young man retreats incredibly quickly. The mentor cannot believe his eyes. He is surprised by his incredible reaction. Chusen thinks that it was quite dangerous. He barely managed to avoid a blow. The battle continues. The young man masterfully evades attacks. The mentor's blade is again aimed at him, and it seems that this time he will not be able to dodge. But the young man is not even going to avoid a blow. He attacks himself. A man cannot believe what happened. The young man does not stop, and delivers a strong blow. The defeated senior mentor of Chondan falls to the ground. The students are amazed. They do not understand how this could happen. Chusen, squeezing the sword in his hand, stands in front of a defeated enemy. The guys standing around are excitedly talking. They are surprised that some young man defeated their mentor. Some of them are going to go to the Yenhan school tomorrow. Others are interested in where the stranger gets such a force. Chusen does not know to rejoice at him or be upset. He won something, but what to do next? A young man with a sword in his hands stands above a kneeling man, behind whom the students gathered. The defeated man is beside himself with rage and humiliation. Musen has not yet decided what to do. He tends to the idea that it is time to run. Suddenly, he hears someone turning to him, calling a young master. He turns around in surprise, uncertain that he did not rush. In front of him, bending down under a heavy burden, stands a guy who met him at the entrance to school. The young man looks at him, wondering why he carries a sign somewhere. Pupils are talking among themselves. They do not understand why he challenged the school. One of them says that he seemed to be going to pick up everything they have, and if not all, then at least a sign. They decide that he is some kind of strange. The guy who brought the sign is lamented that if people learn about it from above, then a large commotion will rise. Bowing, he holds out his burden on the surprised Doko Prusen. The young man is perplexed. Is there really such a tradition at school? To take the sign in victory? Throwing his sword onto his shoulder, he takes a sign and says that, perhaps, he leaves. Turning around, the guy goes to the exit. The affected students look after him. The shocked man who has reported about what had happened as he asks, "What does he mean, tore off and left?" Putting his fist on the table, he gives the command to catch up and beat until he remains an empty place. At the martial arts school, Chel comes up to the teacher with a bow. He says there is a problem. The boy, who has overcome the older mentor, wants to compete with him. He adds that according to rumors, he is still very young. The teacher replies that he grew up enough to know martial arts. The main mentor of the martial arts school, Chel, decides that although he has long since set off, he will be able to indicate his place to the presumptuous boy. The main mentor of the Ilan school is also fulfilled to fight. Their colleague from school believes that if rumors about his victory are spreading, then there will be even more reward for him. The main mentor of the school, Tavern, examines Doko Musan, who said that he had come to look at his skills. The man immediately rushes on the attack. His speed is impressive. He strikes, but receives an even more powerful answer. Doko Chusen beats with his sword right into the enemy's chest. The young man comes into a fight with the main mentor of the Chel martial arts school, and easily knocks out weapons from the hands of a man. The city is only talking about the latest events. People are discussing a warrior who has overcome the mentor of Chandan and took the school sign. They are sure that now he will go for the same trophy to the Chel school. One of the men says that the mentor of this educational institution is already an old man, but he should have first-class skills. His interlocutor replies that it bothers him even more, because the guy visited 5 places, and a reward was put up for his head. The head of the trade house, Chandan, is furious. He asks why they still have not found a guy, and gives the order to everyone to go in search. Teachers to whom he tells do this. They say that their business is to teach, and not work with bloodhounds. The man explains that training was covered from behind the guy, and with them their salaries. But his interlocutors reply that he defeated the strongest mentor. How will they grab him? One of the teachers says that he is enough. He leaves. The teaching of the retired and who confused his skills is unlikely to be needed. The head of the trading house is trying to stop him, saying that he spent a lot of silver on him. A man runs into the room screaming that they have problems. He reports that people are agitating not to buy goods from them and not order anything. The man says that rumors spread that the chase was sent beyond the mysterious warrior. The people are outraged that they cowardly revenge their honestly fighting enemy. Their competitor on the street offers to buy his product, saying that he does not know who this secret master is, but you will not meet these today. On the streets, people are interested in what the guy has a nickname, but no one knows about it. A week later, 4 hands raise up glasses with strong drinks. A man proclaims a toast, and he adds that today he is in a glass in order to spend everything to the last penny. His friend says that he should try everything he wanted so long. Usually he cannot afford this. His friend overtures the contents of the glass. The man continues his speech. He says that thanks to the wanderings of the young hero, the destructive school of martial arts, officials hire everyone indiscriminately for their protection. Therefore, his wallet began to get fat. There are various dishes on the table. A person continues to say that people from a trading house will do everything for the sake of money, so they had to compromise. He also added that their services rose in price. The man raises a glass and offers a drink for a young hero who brought him prosperity. The people gathered at the table agree with him. He asks to bring more drinks and some expensive dish. Hands rise from almost all tables, and visitors require drinking and food. The servant is in a hurry to complete their orders. Mak Chu-san tells Doko Prusen that today you need to work a little. He objects, recalling that the owner promised him to let him go early today. The owner laughs and replies that he cannot let him go when there are so many people in the tavern. And he adds that today the guy is waiting for good tips, so let not whine, but goes and spreads orders. Doko Chusen agrees that work is in the first place. Picking up several plates, he hurries to take them to visitors. Somewhere far from the city on the shore among the thickets, a young man sits right on the ground and dreams of mistress with Ilan. The lunar disk shines brightly over the family estate of the family. The head of the house, Chegel Chanya, turning to Munju, says that wherever you look, all the conversations are only about him. He asks how he is going to deal with this. A man belonging to the lower class, bowing his head low, replies that no matter how hard they try, unfortunately, nothing is impossible to do now. Chegel Chanya asks him if he had one of the 100,000 that he gave him. Manhwa says that acting in this way is problematic. He reports that he had done everything possible, and the feet of his people have already touched the distant lands of Sachon. The master sighs woefully. He knows everything, but he is preoccupied with how to find a suitable person for marriage in such a situation. Already several grooms came to their house, but the whole idea failed because of the girl's refusal. Munju sees that it is worth only with Chegel Chanya to talk about his daughter, as he becomes not his own. The gentleman angrily says that he will break his legs to that impudent boy and cut him into pieces. He is sure that it is the glory that will let him down. Doko Chusen sits on the floor in his room and examines trophies. Signs from martial arts schools. Neither to step or sleep, he thinks. Together with Pekmin, Salt Soch, and her 2 plows, the young man sits at an impromptu table on the riverbank. In front of him is a plate with fried meat. At Pekmina's, at the sight of food, even saliva flowed. She asks the guy if she can try it. Doko Chusen replies that he did not count on their visit, but a lot of meat. So let them take how much they want. The boys asked if it was possible to take a treat. The young man said that of course they need to eat well. Salt Soch, laughing, says that the kids ate a lot, as promised. Breaks joyfully agree with her. The woman asks the guy, does he need work today? Doko Chusen replies that he told the owner, as if he was feeling bad. After all the past week he worked constantly, and now his whole body is breaking. Therefore, today, he eats and gains strength. Looking at the plate standing in front of them, the woman notices that even 5 foods are a lot of food here. The young man explains that the owner complained that there were too many meat, and he sold the part to the employees Zadashevo. Pekmin, giggling, says that probably he bought meat for a specific purpose. Sol South asks the girl, doesn't she love meat? To which it gets an answer that free food is best. The woman, turning to Doko Prusen, is interested in him that with the business that they had spoken about before, and whether the advice that she gave was useful. The guy replies that such a beginner as him cannot use it. They just beat him. He adds that he has trained several times. With Ian says that there was not much time since he began training. Pekmiena is interested in him. She did not know that he was engaged in martial arts. The girl asks, did he really go to school? But the guy explains that he just bought a book and trains alone at night. Peek Mean, laughing, says that they have a miser. And the guy jokingly tells her to give a bowl and sticks. Suddenly her eyes are rounded in surprise. Turning to the guy, she asks why the hieroglyph Kuvan was written on firewood. The young man hastily replies that last night, when he was going home from work, these unnecessary boards were given to him, so he chopped them on firewood. Doko Chusen thinks excitedly. Couldn't the girl guess? Pygmiena asks if they heard about the young master who comes to the school of martial arts, and after the victory takes the sign from their name. With En, it replies that this is all that the guests of their establishments have recently been talking about. He has already gathered a lot, and some, it seems, threw it out into the street. The guy says that excellent wood for their meat came out of them, and to himself rejoices that they have not guessed anything. Doko Chusen sits in his room on a bed surrounded by signs. He thinks that his stomach will burst now, and only 6 pieces took the signs for firewood. He thinks, whether he did superfluous. Rumors spread widely, and now only the issue of the time when they find it. He believes that he should not be revealed. Doko Chusen thinks that he is looking for high-class warriors, and he is not so strong as to confront him. The young man recalls his fight with the main mentor Kanchol, who was far exceeded him, and at the same time he retired. But even now, the guy is breaking through the one thought about the power of his hands. Doko Musen believes that he was lucky that no one can remember his face. However, he still needs to be careful, because there are already rumors. He thinks that tomorrow he will have the last battle, and everything will end. This time he will go to a place with the best reputation in Jinan, where each of the mentors has the best skills. He will go to the School of Martial Arts of Enho. The guy sighs. He will definitely have problems if he brings more boards. The sun rises from behind the mountains. On the rock there is a man who dreamed about with En on the shore. Looking at the city stretching below, he rejoices that he finally reached the place he needed, the territory of the Chigal family. Walking along one of the city streets, he hears someone nauseous. Turning, he sees 2 men. They demand from him to give them all his money, otherwise he will see the sun for the last time. The guy grabs the sword. After the use of military equipment, he, hiding the weapon, says that he is madly tired, and he adds that if they climb to him again, then he will cut them for real. The frightened bandits, who had lost all their combat enthusiasm, are frightenedly asking him for forgiveness. A man approaches the guy and, calling him a master, says that the name of this technique of the sword fully corresponds to her. He turns to him, and is interested in who he is. He asks if he knew that he would come here and waited for him in the morning. The man replies that he had such efforts. He was just a merchant and expected him to get acquainted. The son of the house Namgun gloomily looks at him. The young man again asks who he is, and what does he care about some merchant. The man, bending in front of him, asks for forgiveness for his tactlessness. He says that he is related to Enho's school, and, raising his eyes to the interlocutor, adds that his name is Munch. There are many visitors in the tavern today. Chusen brings guests the dishes they ordered. The owner says that after a day of rest, he seems to fly. The guy asks Chushana, did he ever be one of those who crawl? The man waves off him, and replies that he does not talk about it. Chusen asks Gusan and other guys cleaning on the upper floors, and then go home. The guy standing at the foot of the stairs nods. He climbs the stairs. The young man is immersed in his thoughts. He thinks that only the school of Enho remained, but all with whom he had come across were retired warriors. Chusen represents the educational institution in which he has to go. He realizes that real fighters will meet him there, who can easily cope not only with mentors, but also with full-fledged warriors. He understands that they are first-class fighters, but is not going to retreat. The guy rises up and turns on to visitors. He politely welcomes the guests who have entered. The son of the house Namgun and the merchant stand in the doorway of the tavern. Earlier, Munch introduced himself to the guy as an official representative of the Enho school. He said that he had heard about the visit of the young master. He decided to meet him. The guy asked why he was waiting for him. Munch said that he was a merchant, and here in order to make a trading transaction. The man says that he wants to make one offer that will not harm him. Namgun, not wanting to listen to him, categorically refuses. Then Munch said that this is a chance to become even more famous. The guy is interested. They come to the glass. The man says this is the best place in the city. A local cook cooks first-class dishes. Chusen invites them to go through. Munch demands to show them a place where it is quiet enough for a business conversation. The young man leads them to the top floor. Guests demand to bring them the best dishes. Munch likes Chusen. Namgun asks what he wanted to talk about with him. The man is interested in whether he heard about the young hero sign of martial arts. His interlocutor is surprised. Is he really more famous for him? Munch replies that the guy is known only in the district. He walks to local schools, challenges the mentors, and, winning, takes away signs with their name. He added that only his school remained in the whole district of untouched. But this is not for long. Soon he will reach her. The guy is interested. Munch wants him to give the young hero a call. The man replies that he will generously pay. He is sure that if the victory is for the son of Namgun at the house, he will be able to absorb all the glory of the defeated young man. The young master considers the offer. He says that he seems to hear a servant, a very conscientious guy, is already running up the stairs, and he asked what need was so straining him. Munz replies that the young gentleman is very kind, and his battle skills are outstanding, which is nothing more than a gift from above. Prusen manages to hear part of their conversation. He understands that a young man is a Namgun. From surprise, he almost drops the tray. He also begins to guess who the interlocutor of the young master is. Chusen enters the room. He apologizes, and says that he will now bring food in return for the one that splashed. But Munch says that these are all trifles. The young man, smiling, bows to the man as a sign of gratitude. Chusen understands that the room is now the warrior called a spiritual blade. This nickname was given to the young master for the destruction of the military unit of the Haikfa. They say that his quick sword dissects not only the body, but also the soul of the enemy, and this means that he can control key energy. While the young man explains to the guests that he will bring dishes as they are ready, he thinks that with his current forces he cannot cope with the Namogun. Chusen is upset. He reproaches himself because he trained so little, and asks himself the question, will he really be forced to surrender? He is called from below, saying that the food is already ready, and he can take it. Men continue the conversation. Munch says that he heard that the young master has special feelings for the daughter of the Chel family. Namgun is embarrassed, and replies that he came to ask for her hands. One of the servants asks Prosen, standing on the stairs, whether there are still guests upstairs. The young man asks to take the finished dishes instead to visitors. He goes to the owner and says that he needs to go home. He offers to wait a bit and go together, but the young man replies that he cannot wait. He has one urgent business. When asked by a man what happened, he replies that this is a matter of life and death. Chusen turns around and goes to the exit. He says he should go right now. The young man is extremely determined. At sunset at the martial arts school, Enho announces that the reception of students is over today. The crowd of guys awaiting the whole day of their turn begins to be indignant. A little later, they begin to diverge. Some complain that it was necessary to come earlier. Others agree to meet here tomorrow. Some of them are perplexed. Why such difficulties for the sake of easy recording to school? A group of guys complains that they were very hungry and decide to go into the tavern. They continue to talk among themselves. One of them says that now is the time when a young connoisseur of martial arts appears. One of the guys replies that, no matter how cool this youth is, but he cannot overcome the head of the school of Enho. One of the friends supports his opinion, someone doubts. Some of them decide to argue. Some put them on the head of the school, others on his enemy. A bottle of good wine is chosen as a prize. The debaters continue to push each other. Their friends rejoice that whoever wins, they will drink for free. A young man walks confidently along the street. His courageous figure and self-confidence are impressive. The evening comes, and on the market square it is already almost deserted. A buyer enters one of the shops. The girl welcomes him. Musen asks if she has clothes for making martial arts of his size. And, adding that he is not very versed in this, he asks her to advise him something. The girl, thinking how many years to the guy, agrees. She decides that he is 17 years old or even 16. While the young man complains that the clothes are expensive for him, she continues to look at him. The girl believes that he is too young, but his muscles are not bad. Finally, she finds the desired product, and the guy agrees to purchase it. He calculates how much he has to pay for his clothes, and the amount clearly seems very large to him. Chusen asks why it is so expensive, because the suit offered to him is not much different from what is dressed on him. The girl explains that fighting clothes do not sew on what because of this, and the price is. The guy is interested in whether she has something cheaper. For example, without pockets or an enhanced seam. Perhaps not so bright. It would have done it quite. Smiling politely, the girl replies that she does not trade like that. Having paid the right amount, the guy leaves. The merchant after him says that if you need to patch up the costume, then he can turn to it. But the young man is sure that he will not come here anymore. Chusen is upset. Clothing was more expensive than he expected. He thinks that perhaps you need to look for a part-time job. On the street he sees a man and entangles him by name. Manager Hanshwar rejoices in the meeting and complains that they have not seen each other for a long time. He asks the young man what he does here. Musen asks him not to say that they met here. Otherwise the sisters of Saucha and Mienes will go crazy. Doubts his words and says that it is unlikely that women are interested. But the guy, embarrassed, replies that the matter is not only in him. He ridiculously describes how they will be outraged by the fact that he spends money in Honshkra instead of giving them. The man agrees to be silent, but he is interested in what the guy is doing here. He hardly came here to see him. The young man replies that it is not worth judging hastily. They have not seen each other for a long time, so he wanted to meet. But the man does not believe him, and asks to say what he really wants. Chusen is interested in how he guessed. To which Ian Vaughn replies that no one will be very upset due to the fact that he has not met him for a long time. A little embarrassed, the young man asks to borrow his weapons to him. The man asks if he really needs the wooden sword with whom the hostess is dancing. But the indignant young man says that he had in mind the real one. Yoon, in surprise that he was going to do with him. Chusen explains that he decided to become an outstanding fighter, but he has no weapon. Suddenly he decides that he is better off to leave. But the man stops him. Won his sword, saying that one of the visitors left him in the form of a board for wine. He can take him. The young man is worried that the owner of the weapon can return to redeem it. The man replies that the period of redemption has long passed. Now this is their sword. And in any case they have a dozen of these in their pantry. But at first he wants to ask the guy something, and he will not tolerate lies. And one asks the young man that he was going to make a real sword. Chusen says he will defend himself. The man clarifies whether it is true that he needs a weapon only for self-defense. And the young man confirms that it is. And Vaughn gives him a sword, saying that he can go. The guy thanks him. The man is sure that he is not one who harms people for no reason, and he adds that the main thing is that he himself does not forget about it. He warns that, taking a sword from the scabbard, Chusen should be ready for the other to do the same. The man asks to listen to his words. The guy presses a sword and a knot with a suit. He rejoices that finally, almost ready. The young man thinks that if he comes in his usual outfit, then the head of the Enho school and the Namogun who arrived today will definitely recognize him. Chusen believes that he should not fight with a young master. It is much more important to prevent him from getting to know Madame with En. So thinking, Doko Chusen continues to walk along the street, carefully holding a weapon and a knot with clothes. The young man near the school, without raising his head, answers the next visitor that the record is closed today. Let him come tomorrow. But he says that he came for another purpose. Finally raising his head, the amazed young man sees a person in front of him in a battlesuit, with a sword and a red mask hiding his face. He says that he came to meet with the head of the school. Behind the stranger in the mask, a whispering crowd began to gather in a surprise. He was recognized. This is a young master of martial arts, about which only conversations in the city. Two guys from the crowd talk among themselves. One of them doubts, because he does not recall that he would wear such a mask. Meanwhile, Doko Chusen says that he was forced to take some precautions, because some schools hired experienced masters to search for him. The crowd around rustled excitedly. People rejoiced that they see him. The young man with whom he talked asked him to wait a bit. He needs to immediately inform the head of the educational institution about the arrival of the young master. Doko Chusen thinks that Namgun is waiting for him here. The spiritual blade asks Munz, does he really want him to go against the young master as soon as he ends the battle with the head? He says this is cowardice. His interlocutor replies that this is just a check, whether his opponent is good enough to fight him. Doko Chusen, meanwhile, recalls the conversation he had overheard. He understands that after he defeats in battle, Namgun himself will come out against him. The guy believes that he needs to avoid a fight with him by any means. Meanwhile, the young man returned, who reported on his arrival, and invited him to go through. Doko Musen agrees to follow him. He goes through the gates of the School of Martial Arts of Enho. The assembled people welcome him, and rejoice that the head of the fight against the young master will witness the battle. But two warriors block the road. They say that they do not let strangers into school. If they are not students, then let them go. The crowd begins to be indignant. Everyone wants to see a battle near. Doko Chusen, having heard the words of the guards, thinks that since they do not allow strangers, then they were waiting for him, and everything is already adjusted. The young man, accompanying the guy, bowing to the bow, reports to the master that he fulfilled his assignment. Munch seems and says that he is the owner of the school, and glad to meet with a young man. Doko Chusen thinks that his true intentions are too obvious. The guy replies that because of some circumstances, he cannot name his name. The man says that, judging by his voice, the rumors of his young age are not at all exaggerated. But the guy believes that he should not answer such questions. Munch insinuatingly continues that, as the owner of the school, he knows how to keep secrets. And he asks if the guy does not want to name his name. Such impolite, as he believes, is not appropriate for his glory. Doko Chusen understands that he is trying to provoke him, and if he arranges a scandal, then a Namgun will come out. He replies that he does not see the grounds to trust school owners. He already has a sad experience. He won, and the hosts after that sent the killers to him. The honor of a fighter is nothing for them, and he adds that the owners are not a martial artist. They are just merchants who want to earn as much as possible. So this does not surprise him. These words bring Munch as a rage. He really wants to call Namgun and put up a guy right now. The young master agreed to help him, but he said that he would not allow situations that may damage his reputation. Listening to the conversation of Doko Muson and Munz, Namgun thinks that he does not like the owner of the school. Meanwhile, the young man says that his interlocutor knows why he came here. He agrees that this is known to everyone. He is here to challenge the head of the school. Munch regrets that you will have to wait a bit while the students prepare the site for the fight. Mentally, he is gloating, believing that the young man does not know about the spiritual blade. He is looking forward to how he then regrets that he came here. In the training hall of the school, students gathered, who wanted to look at the battle. Spectators call Doko Gusen a jump, and they are indignant at the fact that he dared to challenge the head of the school. They say that he is very mistaken if he believes that their head Yoonghoi is as weak as the rest. They are sure that his victories came to an end. Standing in the center of the hall, the young man thinks that people from the street are just extinguished, and these only do what they reptile. He hears someone's voice, asking for forgiveness for the delay and referring to important matters, and turns around. Doko Chusen sees in front of him an incredibly huge and strong man, whom he has to look up from the bottom. He thinks that his opponent is really a healthy type. Of course, they said to him, but he did not think so. Really, the growth of this person is above 2 meters. The man standing in front of him seems to be. He says that he is the head of the Enho school, and his name is Jung Hon. Doko Chusen replies that he is glad of acquaintance. He is a beginner in Murim. Jokes for him gave a nickname the young master. It was not very long ago. He asks for forgiveness in advance for rudeness, but cannot name his real name. His words amused the man. He says that he would like to make him so joked. The young man tried to make excuses that this was not in mind. But his interlocutor said that he was just joking. Doko Chusen thinks that he is a very strange type. Young-hun, in his own words, brings a young man. He says that since such a master decided to honor him, a nameless warrior, his attention, then he can give him a head start. And without wasting time for further conversations, the man suddenly rushes on the attack. The young man barely manages to dodge his sword. Young-hun continues to attack, but Doko Chusen, demonstrating an unusually fast reaction, avoids his blows. He manages to think about what they said to him that in Murim, they give a head start to beginners. His opponent cannot believe that he specifically gives him a chance, and so humiliates. Young-hun again attacks the young man standing in front of him. Doko Chusen is evading the blows of an angry man. He steps back before such a powerful pressure. Young-hun says that he has a combat sword, and he heard that he usually uses a wooden one. The young man replies that he also heard something about him, so he prepared. The man laughs. He thanks the enemy for being so afraid of him that he even took a combat sword. Doko Chusen understands that Young-hun will be seriously beaten. He thinks that so far everything went so smoothly that he even relaxed. The young man decides to get together with the forces and no longer allow himself to weaken vigilance. The man, viciously flashing his eyes, again attacks Doko Chusen. He decides that he has evaded enough. It's time to fight. Young-hun rushes right at him, furiously waving his sword. Doko Chusen is motionless on the spot, preparing to repel the attack. But now he sets in motion, deciding to demonstrate his talents to the enemy. Spectators rejoice that the head of the school is crowding the guy. The crowd rejoices, enthusiastic about the fact that, as they expected, the strength on the side of Young-hun, and the young man dared to challenge him, is not suitable for anything. Doko Chusen raves the enemy's blow with a sword. The man is forced to admit that the rumors of the guy are true. The young man thanks him for such a recognition. Incredibly spectacular battle continues. Opponents demonstrate unprecedented strength and dexterity. The man says that unlike the guy does not hide his age. And he asks how old he is, assuming at the same time which is probably less than 20. Doko Chusen replies something like this. He is not going to be frank. Young-hun is surprised that at such a young age he already masterfully controls ki energy. But the young man says that he does not feel her very well. The man laughed and replied that it turns out he only fights at the expense of muscles. It seems he trained a lot. For youths like him, this is not characteristic. For this, he respects him. Young-ho suggests interrupting the conversation and continuing the battle. He again attacks the young man standing in front of him. But he is ready for battle, and the enemy's blow retekes. Young-ho strikes the blow. He is clearly seriously configured. But Doko Chusen is not inferior to the enemy. The young man thinks that for the first time he feels how the edges of the swords vibrate over each other. He understands that a real fight is just beginning. Young-ho says the weak fighters are not worthy of fighting him. Doko Chusen thanks a man for learning something new in the battle technique. The head of the school, breathing heavily, replies that you should not thank, and adds that his strength seems to be the end. Young-ho, realizing that he could not defeat the enemy, decides to surrender. Opponents stand against each other. The crowd explodes with welcoming cries. Doko Chusen thinks that he has achieved the goal. He defeated everyone who challenged. He took up this, hearing that Madame and Yoon loved Swordsman. He slept little, devoting all the time to classes. Thanks to his skills, he was able to avoid some dangers. He lived almost without rest, but it was worth it. The young man thinks that everything was not in vain. He is happy, and understands why Murim masters are training until the end of life. A crowd is raging around. Voices are heard, claiming that they did not expect another from him. They don't really want to recognize. But even the head of the school is not an equal to him. Doko Chusen suddenly realizes that nothing has ended yet. The owner of the martial arts school of martial arts is suitable for him. The crowd continues to enthusiastically welcome the winner. People are interested in his further goals. He is considered a hero and offered to drink with them in a bar. Doko Chusen stands motionless. He thinks that in fact he had just defeated their chapter and they praise him. He recalls that the philosophy of Musim says, "The truth is one who is stronger. The strongest receives everything." The young man continues to stand motionless. He understands that the strongest is also responsible for everything. Such as Murim. Munch says he is a hero. He would not want to recognize this. But even the head of the school is inferior to him in skill. Enho's school is not like others. Here they can recognize the defeat. Spectators support his speech. Doko Chusen, looking at him, thinks that it cannot be that everything is so simple. He is sure that something is wrong here, and he sees how Namgun goes to him, carrying a sign with the name of the school. The young master is approaching, and his gaze does not promise the guy anything good. Namgun thinks that he can no longer listen to all these screams. It is time to see this master hero, but so far there is nothing special in it. An ordinary fighter. He continues to think that there is an agreement. As soon as the young man takes a tablet from him, he will end him. Lays one blow. Doko Chusen turns to Munch, asking him to devote him a few minutes. The man makes a sign to the wagon to wait. He asks the guy what happened, is something wrong? The young man turns to all those present, and calls for those who, like him, should listen to him carefully. There is a truth that he must tell them. Spectators rejoice that the young master ranked all of them to Murim. Mun squints suspiciously, not understanding what the guy planned. Namgun is perplexed. What does the young man want to achieve this? Doko Chusen says he attended a lot of schools, but has not yet met the master like this. The reputation of the school of Enho justified itself. He was struck by the enthusiasm of the students who remained before the evening in the classroom. He continues his speech, saying that it is difficult for him to choose a comparison. But this place is like a dragon's den or a tiger cave. People listening to him cannot believe what is happening. Has he praised their school? Musa thanks for such an unexpected compliment, and understands that the name fun will have to wait. Doko Chusen rejoices that his tactics worked. He says that now he will tell them what they themselves know. It's time to restore justice in Jinan. He adds that he means those who suck the blood and sweat of those who want to learn martial arts. He can no longer see how businessmen grow fat. Therefore, he challenged the heads of schools. He took the signs from those who are not able to teach, thus depriving them of the opportunity to get into cash-in. To himself, he thought that actually he just needed the experience of fights. People who carefully listen to him are delighted. They believe that he does not look like others. He has different values. Doko Chusen adds that this is why today and here he no longer fights. People are perplexed what he says too. They do not understand why he will no longer fight. Why did he then challenge the chapter? Suddenly, someone is overshadowed by thought. And he says that he realized what was at stake. He is asked, is he really clear to him? He replies that he is surprised that they themselves do not understand. The guy explains that the young man says that he cleaned the top of those schools where they cannot teach anyone. And this means that they really teach at Enho. Doko Chusen continued the speech. He says that on behalf of all Murim, he, a young master hero, calls their school a place where martial arts are really taught. Their educational institution is the best in Jinan. No, even the best in the entire province. Listening to the enthusiastic cries of the crowd, Munch understands that the young man arranged such a thing that now he could not do anything with him. Doko Chusen, looking at his confusion, thinks that the man had received right. Munch is furious, but nothing can do anything. His plan failed. A saddened man stands and listens how the audience admires a young man. Namgun, going up to him, says that it seems that everything went not according to plan. He asks Munch whether he remembers the conditions of their transaction. The man is inclined in a slight bow, and says that he remembers everything, and will try to figure it out as soon as possible. The owner of the school is beside himself with rage, and mentally shows Doko Gusan with insults. He watches how the crowd welcomes the guy, and understands that if Namgun comes out now, no one will like it. Munch thinks that you need to be more cunning, but so far nothing standing to his mind comes. He thanks the guy for such an inspired speech, and says that they accept his words and agree with him. His visit is a great honor for them. The man bows slightly to the young man, and he says that he should leave, but he will return later. These words find Munch by surprise. He stands like a thunder amazed, not understanding why he is going to return. The training room is empty. Only one person is still here. Namgun counts the coins, thinking that money is enough taking into account everyday expenses. He is sure that there will be no problems with them before returning home. He thinks that he can afford a new set of clothes for classes, and even a new sword. Namgun recalls the battle and tactics of the young master. The young man is sure that he could evade many blows, but he preferred to block them. He believes that this is usually gaining experience for a real fight, where beauty is not important. The young man is sure that in the art of battle the guy is not strong, and he is far from himself. As it were, the deal is completed, and now he can go about his business. He decides that it's too late, and perhaps it is worth linger here until tomorrow. And you will also need to buy something for a meeting with a young lady from the Chel family. Suddenly, he hears someone asks him to stop. The young man turns back. Moons hurries to him from all his feet, asking him to pay him a minute of attention. Namgun asks the man, what else does he need from him? He is unhappy. thinking that he probably wants to return the money. But the man says that he needs help. He asks a little more to help his school. Munch recalls how he heard the words of the young hero that he would return. Asked what he had in mind, the young man was in no hurry to answer. At first he put his palm on the hilt of the sword, and only then explained what he wanted to say. He has high hopes for their school. Gifted people learn here, and he wants to continue to communicate with them. Munch was forced to listen to the exclamations of enthusiastic students flying from all sides. They rejoice that the hero senses a martial arts appreciated their abilities so highly, and want to train even more in order to achieve its level. Despite the attempts of Munch to abandon such an honor, the young man assured him that he would definitely return in a month. Now the man stands in front of the Namgun, incomprehensible what help he interprets. The owner of the school asks him, did he really not hear that the guy promised to return? For requests and prayers for helping Namgun, he only frowns with displeasure. He says that he warned that he came here about his business. He was about to leave, but Munson offers him 5,000. The man is ready for anything. He does not know why their school was needed by the guy, but I am sure that if in a month he will not put someone to fight against him, then he can be closed. It is determined to deal with this problem at all costs. The man asks Namgun to linger until the young hero is the sign of martial arts, and he will give him 5,000 yangs for this. Chusen is looking at the mask. He rejoices that no one recognized him. He spent all the money on the costume, but I am sure that it was worth it. He stands on the street and thinks that while the young master can disappear, the young man curiously worked for his plan. He recalls his thoughts in the training room. There, realizing that Namgun expertly owns the energy of Qi, and he was not even, he decided to take advantage of someone who had already put him a bandwagon. He thinks that since Mansa today brought Namgun today, so why not ask him to come again? Chusen believes that it must be arranged so that he never looks at Madame within, and it doesn't matter to him how to do it. He walks along the street, and passing by the lane, recalls that old evening. In his memory, in the smallest detail, the battle with Hikundu, the head of the Black Dragons, pops up. The young man thinks that after that day, something has changed irrevocably in him. He wonders if his martial arts skills have improved because of this, that he defeated even the head of the Enho school in a duel. He puts on a mask, thinking that if Mansa acts as he suggests, then their new meeting is inevitable, and this means that he will have to fight Namgun. He concludes. Chusen understands that he has only 1 month to master Qi control. Chusen tells the guy that he worked well today in the morning shift, so he can go later, and now let him just go down for lunch. He tells another servant, Desik, to deal with what remains. He agrees, and asks Chusen, why does he sleep at every break and what does he do at night? He is interested in whether the guy will not have lunch again today. But he is in no hurry to answer. He already lies, covering his face with his hand. Then reluctantly says that he also does not have appetite today. A friend notices that he has not had him for several days. Is he sure he was not sick? Chusen complains that he just sleeps well at home. The owner of the taverns intervenes in the conversation. He recalls that he offered to allocate a room for him so that he would no longer sleep in his hibora, but the young man refuses his offer and thanks for the care. Chusen replies that he can do as he wants. Desik says he will leave him food and the guy can take her home. Then he asks the owner of the tavern if he can spend the night here, to which the man grumbles in response, what will be visible further. Chusen thinks that there is little time left. He is worried that Namgun and Mr. Munch can come here again. Then he will have to plant them in the dark corner. He cannot allow the young master to meet with Ilan, but having dismissed anxious thoughts, he decides that he still needs to sleep. Suddenly, he hears someone's voice, whether he is interested in today. Turning around, the affected guy sees in front of him the youngest daughter of the Chel family. Noticing his confusion, the girl laughs and asks what surprises him so much. Not knowing what to answer, the guy says that she just came too close. With Ilan is upset that she prevented him from resting. She asks for forgiveness and says she will leave now. Chusen understands that he said something wrong. He jumps up from his improvised bed and shouts that this was not at all in mind. The girl slyly looks at him and is interested. Did he rest or not? The guy laughs embarrassedly and replies that he had already rested. He offers to spend it upstairs. Desik, seeing a scurrying guy, is surprised. He didn't even want to eat. The young man says that he will simply lead the mistress in place. A friend replies that he himself can do this. Musin claims that everything is in order. He will do it himself. But Desik does not let him in. He says that the guy was only laying down to rest. A friend, worrying about him, offers him to go back a little. But the young man persistently asks him to shut up. Finally, Desik understands that he should not interfere. He leaves, saying that the guy does not forget to take the food. With En looking after him, "Is everything in order to be interested?" The young man laughs and replies that everything is fine. He asks what drink she wants today. The girl asks to bring her tea luncheon. The young man looks at her alarmed, thinking that some kind of she is not like that today. The saddled with En sits at the table waiting for the order, and tries to understand where gossip spreads about it. She is worried about rumors claiming that she likes strong masters of the sword. Come on, if only this. But also handsome. Someone wants people to think that she is paying about appearance more than about everything else. The girl decides that someone specifically spreads rumors defaming her. And this is the one who sharpened his teeth on her family. She heard that more and more strange men were trying to get married to her. With En, the thought overshadowed that unknown people are doing this intentionally to destroy her chances of a happy marriage. At this time, her tea is brought, and having carefully sipped, she understands that he is too hot. Her reaction is quite appropriate for a person who sipped boiling water, but she is very inconvenient, and she looks anxiously around, hoping that no one noticed this. The girl sees Doko Chusen. The guy stands in front of the table, holding a dish in his hands. He looks at the girl dumbfounded. Then he handed her a plate, and says that he brought something to tea. With thanks him. He puts a dish in front of her, and the girl burns with embarrassment. She is very uncomfortable that he saw everything. Looking at Doko Gusen, she thinks, why at that moment it was he who turned out to be nearby. The girl tries to calm down. She believes that now is not the time to worry about something like that. We need to think more about the present, and make sure that something is strange. She plunges into memories about the day when she walked in the courtyard of estates. That evening, certainly someone came to their house. Looking after the removing young man, she continues to reflect that only one of the people's people could be. She already objected to the marriage with the family of Namgun, who was organized by her father in order to rebel against the Hwanbo family. Really all this happened in order to insist on this marriage, she thinks. She recalls her father. What if he is behind all this? With En, he believes that this is impossible, although it makes you think. But, she decides, do not doubt it without evidence. The moon shines brightly above the estate Chegel. Chegel Chanya is interested in those who are in front of him. Is the one about whom there are so many rumors. Tonsha? The head of the house carefully examines the one to whom he addressed the question. In front of him is a man in a long cloak and a national headdress. Chegel Chanya asks, is that illustrious person really before him? He stands in anticipation of the answer to the question he posed, not taking away the inquisitive look from the man standing in front of him. Mantonch replies that he arrived later than he wanted. He talks about the need to be sharp. The man recalls the place closest to the house of the Chagall family. This is the best institution in the city. But when he walked today along the street, he noticed that some beggar was pursuing him again. He thinks that he had already seen him 3 times on the way to Jinan, and he recalls that he was almost caught by one of the poor. The beggar asks for a coin and promises to immediately lag. But the person he addresses is very worried about his new clothing, whom he bought to make a proposal to Madame and En. He still gives a beggar who has 2 knots on his belt 5 coins. He thanks him. A man in a cloak, watching them, understands that these are people from the Caban group. He thinks that they probably suspected that he had documents. He continues to carefully observe what is happening around. He draws attention to the poor sitting on the ground. And he thinks that he saw a lot of beggars in this city. Seeing the noticeable nodes on their belts, the man realizes that the people from the Caban clan have already spread throughout Jinan. He believes that he needs to be more accurate. Chegel Chanya continues to look closely at the man standing in front of him. He thinks that he heard that he was an honest person, but still he needs to be careful. A man in a cloak welcomes the head of the house and says that he is Khan Ilsan, but usually people call him Many Tonch. Chegel Chanya is interested in how to believe in it. From what he heard, Many Tonch is not the person who will make his way to the houses of strangers through the walls. The man apologizes and says that circumstances forced him to do this. The head of the house asks what he needs from him. His interlocutor replies that he is here in order to translate the ancient document of the Chegel family. Chegel Chanya is interested in, did he really jump over the fence of his house because of such a trifle? If he needs a translation, he could just go through the door. He considers this behavior a disrespect for their family. Khan Ilsan asks him to calm down. Turning to the head of the house, he asks, does he really think that if this document was ordinary, he would turn to him? Han Ilsan promises that his document will lead them directly to the Pai Yenkim. The affected Chegel Chanya clarifies whether his interlocutor has in mind the devil's sword. The man confirms that he speaks of a man who destroyed all the old groups one after another, about who was called the Devil's Sword. Today it is known as Pe Enkim. The head of the house is interested in where he got this document, but Kanil-san says that he cannot say this. Chegel-chanya wants to look at the scroll, but the man replies that he is not able to do this until he gives him a clear answer. The head of the house, Kagal, asks him not to worry. It doesn't matter how interesting the Devil's Sword is for him. He will not look at techniques that he will not even be able to learn. Khan Ilsan asks for forgiveness for involuntarily offended their family. Chegel-chanya replies that you should not do this. The fact that they are born without abilities for martial arts is the curse of their family. His interlocutor is interested in, doesn't the head of the house want to get this knowledge? Chegel-chanya replies that he is also a warrior. Therefore, if he says that he does not have such a desire, he will lie. In addition, if the Devil's Sword is in his hands, then the rest of the problems will solve easier. Khan Ilsan asks, then why all this? The man replies that it is one thing to desire to get this knowledge, it is completely different to try to take them away. He continues that the main thing is to be a person. He is not a robber and recognizes his desire, but he is not going to take away anything from him. Chegel-chanya says that he needs to take care of his own and not to dawn on someone else's. Heaven gave him the Chegal family. He is happy that he has it, and he does not have time to think about what belongs to another. Khan Ilsan is amazed at his frankness. He asks for forgiveness for his rudeness. But the head of the house interrupts him, saying that he already apologized enough. He asks to leave him a document, and he promises the name of the Chegal family that no one will know about it. Khan Ilsan thinks that he knew that he would come here the right decision. He says that he heard a man worried about the groom of his youngest daughter. The head of the house is interested in where he got such information. Khan Ilsan swells that this, of course, will not pay for his kindness, but he can solve his problem. He swears to take care of his troubles. He helped create dozens of families, and although he is not a professional matchmaker, it will not be difficult to find a worthy party to the girl. Chegel-chanya replies that his daughter still does not want to get married. He says that he does not want to force her. And then, with a sigh, he adds that, of course, he would like to do it. The man says carefully to the interlocutor that the groom should be smart and beautiful, and he should be one of the masters in Murim and be very strong in martial arts. Khan Ilsan replies that actually it is quite difficult to find such a guy. A loving father adds that all this should look as natural as possible. So the man must make sure that neither her daughter, nor her husband, nor about anything, are guessed. He tells Khan Ilsan that they need to be deceived. The man thinks that his interlocutor is not just an honest person. He is also very stupid when it comes to his daughter. Two tipsy men are raving along the night street. One of them complains that he drank so much and did not even notice. The second exhorts him and asks to go home. They continue to go, complaining that they have been forced to suffer for a month now. Where else will there be such hard-working beggars like them? This is some kind of shame. One of the men says that shame is that in this area they are not alone. If everything continues so, then the students will stop respecting them. On this, they decide to disperse in different directions. Before the hut, standing in a small meadow surrounded by trees, is a group of people on their knees. Their leader is asked a question. Did he find Mans of Tansha? The man asks the deputy master, is he sure that he was not misleading? They searched the whole city, but did not find a single trace of a person with that name. The deputy master, hidden behind the canopy, replies that they could not find anyone exclusively because of their laziness. He tells him to take more people with him. The leader says that they have already mobilized everyone who could. They collected all the information up to what the color of the laundry prefers to wear the owner of the Enho school, the richest person in the area. The deputy master throws back the canopy, hiding him. He says that he was in the market today and saw many beggars there. He advises using them, and also tells not to stop the search either day or night. The leader objects. If they stop begging, they will simply die of hunger. It seems to him that a man has incorrect information. The deputy's eyes flashed unkindly. He menacingly asks a kneeling man, how does he dare to assume that he is wrong? Novogi Mensen, the elder of the Kiban group, unkindly looks at the people in front of him. Frightened leader asks him to calm down. The old man, who burned with an anger, is pleased with his humiliated request. Nehoga Mansan says that he does not worry about starvation. If a man does not find the person he needs, then he will break his legs and make him beg for forgiveness until the end of his days. He tells them to find many Tonch immediately. A man in the house of the Chegal family welcomes Khan Ilsan. He says that he cannot believe that he met such a famous person here. He seems to say that he is the head of the Haomun family. Chegel Chanya and Man Tonsha stand opposite him. Men shares a round table on which there are glasses and a jug. The head of the house, Chegel, begins to speak, but the guest interrupts him. Khan Ilsan wants to know how far the Haomun family has advanced in their business. The man replies that he does not quite understand what is at stake. But Chegel Chanya says that Man Tonshi is already known. The head of the family Haomun admits that he became so famous for not just that. Men are located at the table. They discuss the theme of the marriage of the mistress with Ilan. Now there are rumors about the young hero sign of martial arts everywhere, and they are intertwined with the previously popular gossip about the lady from the Chagall family. Man Tonsha is interested in their opinion, how this situation can drag on for a long time. The head of the Kaomun family replies that the heroes about the hero are beginning to subside, so he thinks that they can continue the implementation of the plan next month. They placed people throughout the central market, and when the time comes, they will begin to act. Man Tonshi listens carefully to them. He asks, they could not wait with their plans and send staff to Hebei province. The interlocutors look at him with misunderstanding. The head of the Haomun family replies that they cannot do this. They spent a lot of money to place their people here. But Chegel Chanya tells him to do as Mans Tonsha said. He will cover all costs. The man asks with resentment, does he really not believe in the Haomun family? The head of the house Kagal looks at him in bewilderment. Man Tonsh asks them to calm down. He says that he did not mean. He simply offers a little reconsider their actions. As he heard, more than 2 months have passed since the implementation of the plan. But in all this time, there was no progress. The head of the family, Haomun, says that the spiritual blade of Namgun in Jinan. But Chegel Chanya objects that he has some business with Enho's school. The heads of houses continue to argue about Namgun. Man Tonsh asks them to calm down and drink. They are all in one boat, so they do not need discord. Haomun asks what they are going to do. Man Tonsh says that there are simply not enough rumors. It doesn't matter how much they spread. A couple of grooms still appeared. The head of the family Haomun is interested in what follows. The man believes that people do not come because they have no way to check how true the rumors are. His interlocutors are perplexed, because it should be so. Rumors are not built on anything. Man Tonsh says that no matter how much Torgash tells about the beauty of his flowers, no one will believe him until he puts them on the showcase. His words are confused. He believes that they should send a young lady to the League of Murim to Hebei. This will be the beginning. Dawn comes. Above the house of the Black Dragon faction, the sky will pink. The giant Hikundu is standing his head. A ball of ball flies into it, leaving impressive dents on the wall behind it. His minions are asked to stop the execution. After all, if it continues, then he can die. A man holding balls in his hand replies that he really wants to beat them, but he recoups at Hikundu. However, if they want to take his place, then he does not mind. He asks how they dare to humiliate the Black Dragon in his absence. He believes that they need to be taught. His eyes burn with anger. He says that this time they will understand what is happening with the perpetrators of such a shame. He throws one of the balls, which is rapidly flying forward, carrying an unprecedented destructive power. In the room of Doko Gusan, a suit is carefully folded on the bed, and a sword is sloping nearby. There is an extinct candle on the table, and there is an open book. On the river under the bridge, sitting on a stone, Doko Chusen meditates. A solar disk rises above the mountains. The young man is focused on the concentration of energy. The understanding comes to him that he was looking too far, and the fact that he needs to be everywhere in the world. What he has been looking for so long is called ki. The young man stands on a stone, closing his eyes. He revels in his discovered knowledge. All this is not easy for him. Sweat rolled down his face. At a moment, he decides that this should be enough. He feels what he had never felt before. Chi energy concentrated in his stomach. Doko Chusen is sure that now he can repulse the spiritual blade of the Namefun. He thinks that it would be necessary to try this ki, but unfortunately, he should go to work. The young man reflects on the fact that recently his body has become easier. Today he feels it too. The first buyers appear on the market square. Walking down the street, the guy feels hungry. He thinks that he trained chi from hour and until dawn last night. Doko Prusen is interested in that the owner of the tavern has prepared today. Suddenly he stops, realizing that he feels some kind of danger. The guy notices that the energy that has a warning his energy is concentrated in one place. He sees a man lying on the ground and rushes towards him, naughty by name, Mr. Chongi. Raising his head a little, the young man asks what happened and how he feels. He will recognize the guy. Doko Musen heard that among low-ranking fighters this man is considered one of the most talented. He is perplexed who could do this with him. Suddenly he hears someone's voice asking who he is. Is it really a friend of this weakling? Chongi asks Dokugusen to run. The stranger who inspires fear, approaching, says that if he does not want to hurt him, then let him follow the advice and get lost. A strong and tall man going to them added that he has a disgusting mood today. The young man says that he has no idea who he is, but their tavern is very popular. And if he behaves like that in broad daylight, then people will poke his fingers in it. The man, considering him funny, is interested in who he is. Doko Chusen seems to be an employee of the tavern. This amused his interlocutor. He says that the world is very wonderful. Some miserable servant dares to get into his affairs. Chongi advises him to immediately escape, because before him is the supreme leader of the Black Dragon Hochua faction. This name makes an impression on Dokugusen, but he is clearly not going to run. Hochua is a southern barbarian. He is so ferocious and cruel that even his own subordinates are afraid of him. The supreme leader of the faction is surprised that Chin still had the strength to speak. Doko Chusen asks the wounded man to stay in place, otherwise he may become worse. Seeing that the young man was heading for Hochua, Chongi again asks him to leave. The guy stands opposite the leader of the Black Dragon faction. He says that if he wants to beat Mr. Chongi, then he will first have to go through him. The man asks how he dares to handle the guest so rudely and strikes. To his surprise, the young man is ready to repel the attack. For Hochua, it was a surprise that his opponent knows martial arts. He guesses that this is the same young man who opposed the Black Dragons. Doko Chusen boldly looks at the enemy. He is ready to accept the battle. In the tavern, servants carry ordered dishes. Two men who brought noodles are talking. One of them says that recently his friend is very difficult to pull out for dinner. Is his security bureau so much busy? The interlocutor replies that the days are issued crazy. After all, the Bureau of the Golden Dragon is still closed, so all the work fell on them. They continue the conversation, during which they discuss that the daughter of the leader of this bureau disappeared during the trip 15 days ago. The one who finds it will be paid a solid award. They are surprised at how to be an impudent in order to abduct the daughter of the head of the security bureau, and they think that the abductors probably want to get a ransom. Men come to an agreement that such villains should be punished, and they ask to bring more drinks, despite the fact that only the early morning. One of them says that it's so angry that it will be strange not to drink 2 bottles. His friend replies that this is not his problem. Why worry so much? Chongi is interested in the opportunity to earn extra money and curry up in front of the Golden Dragon. He thinks that if he handled, he will be able to marry this girl. Inadvertently, he pushes the person walking towards him. He sincerely apologizes, saying that he just thought very much. Chongi is sincere. He did not want to push a man at all. But the big man, who turned out to be the supreme leader of the faction of the Black Dragon Hochua, sparkled his eyes angrily. Around Doko, Gusen, and a man, a crowd begins to gather. Hochua says that the young man was just lucky to see and fend off his lazy blow. The guy replies that his movements are so obvious that it would be strange not to notice them. The supreme leader immediately hits again, saying that he will see if he can block it. But the young man manages to close, and the blow does not bring him any harm. Hochua cannot believe that he had repelled his deadly attack of a dark palm. He believes that the guy does not deserve to vegetate the waiter here. Doko Chusen thinks that he will not be able to recapture such a blow again. His hand will just break. The man invites him to join their faction and become his student. The young man replies that being a waiter is better 100 times. Yes, even die 1,000 times better than joining the Black Dragons, which I can only mock those who are weaker. Hochua, hearing his answer, was very angry. The leader of the Black Dragon faction is bursting with wild laughter. People are forced to cover his ears. He possesses such an unusual force. Looking at the young man with eyes with red light, the man asks the guy if he understood him correctly. So, he prefers the work of the waiter to stay in their faction? 2 golden balls appear in his palm. People with horror and distrust look at the giant. The angry master of the nucleus of a wild beast appeared before them, the most dangerous warrior of the faction. He waving and turning to the young man, he says that he would look intently what will happen next, and think about the consequence of his words. Throwing the balls, which quickly rush to the walls of the tavern, he promises to destroy their institution. Doko Chusen, rushing to him, requires him to immediately stop 8. The young man raises his fist to hit the enemy. Hochua incredibly finds himself behind him. He beats Doko Chusen from behind. Falling to the ground, the young man thinks why the slow time does not turn on at such moments. The head of the faction orders him to lie and look at the consequences. The defeated guy watches what is happening from the ground. He is forced to watch the nuclei of a wild beast is being poured by the tavern. Despite the pain, he is trying to rise. The leader of the Black Dragon faction, holding a luminous ball in his hand, says he warned him. Dako Chusen stands based on a sword. Hochkwa is mockingly interested in. He really has not yet surrendered, because his legs are not even holding him. The young man lifts the weapon and promises the enemy that now everything will be different. The walls of the building are shaken and showered under the well. Aimed blows of Hochkwa. The split sign of the institution lies on the floor. The leader of the Black Dragon faction, masterfully controlling the nuclei, smashes the tavern. People in the crowd are amazed at what is happening. Someone uncertainly asks, probably, you need to call someone. Someone complains that Oval will now close. The owner is outraged by arbitrariness, but a standing man nearby advises him not to contact a black dragon. Suddenly the man is old, and he turns to see who he needed at such a moment. A servant of Dasik approaches him. The man rejoices that he is in order and asks that with the others, are they intact? The guy replies that neither guests nor employees were injured. Chusen is pleased that there were no casualties. Dasik asks what is happening here and hears in response. The leader of the Black Dragon faction decided to bring a bustle here. Suddenly the owner realizes that Doko Musen was fighting with Hochwa alone. The young man resolutely raises the sword, ready to resist the raging giant. They stand against each other among the square, surrounded by a crowd of people. Doko Chusen promises the enemy that now everything will be different. The leader of the faction cannot believe that the guy dared to challenge him. But he is more striking in the fact that in the hands of the enemy, a sword is pointed key. He is surprised that the young man was able to recapture his previous attack. The man thinks about how a simple waiter can resist him. Doko Chusen attacks Hochwa, but he successfully evades. He mocks the guy, saying that he opened and prepared to throw the core. Opponents are ready to attack each other and repel attacks. The leader of the faction tells the guy that he is not the only one here can use Kuei. The young man replies that perhaps this is so, but only he does not need to boil with this. The face of Hochwa turns into a dragon's face. He growls that he will have to make the guy a disabled person to bring him to his senses. Doko Chusen easily reflects all the nuclei abandoned into it with a sword. The balls fly along different trajectories. They are behind the young man. He has to try well to survive. But in spite of everything, he manages to cope with a seemingly overwhelming task. The enemy does not stop the attack, but this does not scare Doko Gusan. The leader of the faction picks the guy, saying that he continues to defend himself, and he will see how much he is enough. The young man, not paying attention, blocks the sword of the blows of the continuingly flying nuclei in him. Abandoned by a strong hand, Hochwa. He masterfully owns a weapon, and the balls seem to have no chance to achieve the goal. Dako Chusen continues to fight fearlessly, but now he decides to attack the leader of the Black Dragon faction. He wounds a man who did not expect such activity from an opponent, a hand. The young man is preparing to deliver another blow. His opponent cannot recover. Hochwa is perplexed. Where did the guy come from? And why, owning such skills, allowed himself to be beaten? The leader of the faction asks the young man, does the one who faces him knows? He says that after such a faction will not give him a dissent, and asks, is the guy of blood revenge is not afraid? The walls of the taverns are badly damaged. The nuclei inflicted tangible damage. Chusen and Dasik are amazed that the young man managed to survive. Doko Chusen, with contempt in his voice, advises Hochwa to get lost. The leader of the Black Dragon faction stands on his knees, clamping the wound with his hand. The young man recommends that he disappear. The man is angry, but he does not have the opportunity to object, and he agrees. He leaves, and Doko Chusen, holding his sword in his hands, escorts him with his eyes. Hochwa thinks that he will make the guy regret that he let him go alive. He promises himself that neither the guy nor the tavern will survive until the end of the day. Friends are interested in the well-being of Doko Chusen. They are outraged that the leader of the faction nearly killed the guy and defeated the building. People from the crowd support them. Someone says that everything is scattered here. Two guys stand aloof, silently watching what is happening. Then they begin to talk quietly together. One of them is surprised that a simple waiter was able to sharpen the sword of Ki. His interlocutor believes that he did not. He heard that there are such schools where they teach the method of freezing the blade. Maybe he also knows how. They continue to discuss the incident. One of them says that he heard about the beast, like Huhua. They say that he is a famous warrior. His friend replies that this man was unlikely to be the famous leader of the faction. Dako Chusen is watching the guys, and rejoices that they decided that it was just the skill that he had learned at school. Chusen and the rest of the waiters surround the guy, wondering what happened while they were on the market. They are worried if he is wounded. The young man replies that everything is fine. He is intact. He only has a bruise on his hand. They look at the crushed tavern. Doko Chusen is furious, which is replaced by confusion when he hears him called a lousy. In the Black Dragon faction, they cannot believe that Ho Chua was beaten. A man sits in the hall on the elevation. Servants are on the sides of him, and a man stands on his knees. The chief leader of the Black Dragon faction, Gvanpen, turns to a kneeling man, led him to stop jokes, and call him Chua here. He is trying to object, but Gvanpen interrupts him. He says that if he decided to tell jokes, then let it do it normally. In Jinan, there are only a couple of people who can be compared by strength to their brother. The person is trying to say something again, but the chief leader of the faction does not allow him to do this. He continues to say that he would rather believe that one of the best students dared him to dare. People in the hall support him. They confirm that it is difficult to win Chua, and if this person decided to poison the jokes, then let it do it more realistic. Gvanpen orders to stop talking. He believes that it is not worth saying that some righteous won him even as a joke, and he adds that only a couple of days remained before they return to the Black Dragon faction. People in the hall are sure that those who dared to tie a fight and invading their estate will be carried by a well-deserved punishment. The chief leader of the faction thinks that they no longer have to live quietly because of this group. Hohua appears in the hall and welcomes Gvanpen. Struck by the view of the entered man, the chief leader is interested in what happened. Ho Chua stands in the center of the hall. He is completely exhausted and wounded. A man who is accused of lying asks if everyone still thinks that he is joking. The crowd is outraged. Everyone wonders, who dared to do this? Someone suggests that these are again the best students from the group of righteous. Some man offers to run from here. A scream commanding everyone to shut up is sweeping over the hall. Silence reigns. No one dares to open his mouth. All gathered look at the Hochkua in the center. He asks the chief leader of the faction to give him 10 people. If he fulfills his request, then he will take only half of his salary this month. Gwanpen asks him, does he really want to interfere with the money in this question? The man continues to say that it is not about money, but in devotion. They offended his brother, who he will be if he lets them with it. And how dare they touch the first leader of the Black Dragon? He expresses urgently to collect everyone who is free. Gwanpen threatens to show that the anger of the Black Dragon is so terrible. Ho Chua did not expect such a reaction. The sunset painted the sky in crimson paints. Gwanpen says Ho Chua that the gathered people will be enough. They can go. In front of them is a lot of lines of warriors stretched into a string. Ho Chua thanks a man, and promises to take care of everything and repay for an insult. He replies that he should not thank him. Of course, he will always satisfy the request of his younger brother. Gwanpen turns to the people standing in front of him. He admits them in front of the battle and calls for bringing blood revenge on the heads of those who dared to attack the Black Dragon faction. The crowd answers him with enthusiastic cries. An unexpected noise attracts universal attention, and Mr. Vanpen is interested in what happened. The man, because of which Kudarom began, shouts only one words, the enemy. Gwanpen says this is impossible. He is perplexed whether in the entire province of Shandun, someone has such a force to dare to attack them. But what happened after amazes everyone. An unknown enemy smashes their estate. Before their eyes, a person with a sword in his hands appears. Doko Chusen does not expect that the owner of the tavern can call him a lousy. Looks at him with surprise. Mak Chusan continues to pronounce the guy. He asks him how he can now lament the institution. They can always restore it. But his life is alone, and he almost died. The guy is amazed at his words. He did not expect to hear such speeches from him. The owner of the tavern says that he began to study martial arts not long ago, but his successes are simply amazing. Friends say that now they understand why the guy always sleeps during breaks. He does not sleep at night, but now they know that it is worth it. One of the waiters said that he thought that Doko Chusen Murim, or like that. The waiters are violently discussing the incident. They are sure that if it weren't for the Chus, then they would have to look for work again. Desik says that he will need to buy something later. Another servant reflects on whether to do the martial arts at night. Doko Chusen rejoices that everything is safe. The owner of the tavern understands that so far they will not be able to conduct business. Mak Chu-san and Doko Chusen stand, considering the damage caused and thinking what to do next. The young man is sure that the repair will fly into a penny. The owner believes that with money he will be able to come up with something. A man bows in front of Namgun in Bao. He holds out a letter to him, and it reports that he was handed over to a man in black combat clothes. The young master, looking at the servant, asks if that person said something else. Namgun opens a letter, and the servant says that this is a message from the young master hero. A guy with a sword, which caused the estate of the Black Dragon's faction, stands in front of a crowd of warriors. Guanpen asks Ho Chua, does he know who he is? Perhaps this is one of those who attacked him. But the man says that he had never seen him before. The main leader is furious from such a neglect of his faction. He urges his warriors to kill this impudent guy. A crowd of men rushes into an armed young man. The guy says this is a trap. Namgun, who boldly standing in front of the warriors rushing towards him, thinks that everyone continues to talk about this young master hero. Stupids, and nothing more. Men, encouraged by the cries of their leader, hurry to deal with the guy. Namgun recalls the readings of the received message read. In them, a modest warrior named Young Master Hero asks to teach him his skill. He promises that he will not forget about his favor until the end of days. The letter said that he would wait for him in a mansion located in the vicinity of the city. Namgun believes that since he was attacked here, it means that they are all at the same time. He easily straightens out with numerous opponents. The minions of the chief leader of the Black Dragon faction show off him with insults and ask how he dared to come here. The young man promises to kill them all. His sword flashes at an incredible speed, causing irreparable damage to the attacking men. Namgun tirelessly waves a blade, hitting numerous opponents. They try to surround it, sneaking up from the back. But he stops any attempts by enemies to approach him. Opponents, gathered with strength, again rush to the young master. Namgun is not going to retreat, and fearlessly continues the battle. There are very few men who are ready to fight him. Gvampen is perplexed. He cannot understand how this guy could appear literally from nowhere and kill all his people. He wants the younger brother, Ho, personally take care of this guy. Looking at the brave young man, the chief leader of the faction thinks that, most likely, this is a newcomer to some group of righteous. He rushes Ho Chua, driving him quickly to deal with the insolent. The first leader of the faction is in a hurry to fulfill the order, mentally lamenting that everything is somewhat strange today. Namgun meets him with a contemptuous look. The young master raises the sword, preparing to continue the battle. Warriors enthusiastically welcome the appearance of Ho Chua, encouraging him with cries, and asking the young man to teach a young man. But a man does not hide in the clouds. He understands that his opponent is too tough for him. Namgun easily beats off the nuclei abandoned by him with a sword. Suddenly, Ho Chua is overshadowed by some thought, and the man screams that he remembered. He finally realizes that the guy standing in front of him is the spiritual blade of Namgun. The young man in a red mask, from afar, watching the battle, asks the question, "Is it time for him to go?" The man, screaming in pain, holds on to the wounded hand. The second, no less battered, the warrior asks for help. Namgun ruthlessly waves his sword, and a man standing in front of him freezes helplessly. Chusen cannot believe that Namgun is so strong. The young man, holding a red mask to himself, watches the development of events. He understands that he does not defeat the young master. He still has to grow and grow before him. He puts on a mask and decides that it is time to advance. Doko Musen heard that all these villains are hiding in the warehouse. The voices of men who are clearly nearby come to him. At first, someone asks to hurry, then, on the contrary, behave quieter. Looking around the corner, he sees how two men are trying to cope with the castle. At the same time, one of them brings a friend for calling himself a specialist, and he himself fiddling for so long. The bandits who once fought with Doko a garbage in the lane are bickering. Verzila wants to get out of here as soon as possible. The friend asks him to shut up. Suddenly a man in a red mask appears in front of them and kindly offers to help them. He resolutely goes to them. Men are uncertainly interested in where he came from. Doko Chusen replies that they do not need to know this, and he asks whether they are storing everything they stole here. Verzil, showering him with swear words, rushes forward. He believes that in front of him is a thief who came here for the riches of their faction. Accepting the combat rack, the young man says that they also wanted to steal everything and escape to hell. It was thanks to them that he easily found this place. Doko Chusen without much effort beats the attack of Grimilla. The young man strikes the enemy. The stunned Verzil cannot take a breath. He falls down right in front of the amazed friend. His friend is unpleasantly amazed. He swears, because if not for this person, then he would take his share and escaped without a trace. He is trying to attack Doko Chusen, but he easily evades the blow. The man wants to hurt the young man with a blade, but he manages to grab the sword and fend off the blow. The bandit is amazed because he considered himself a good warrior, but Doko Chusen does not allow him to think for a long time and delivers a decisive blow. Both villains lie at the feet of a guy rising above them. He recalls that he has already seen a similar picture and laughs. Out of the corner of his eye, he notices a rope lying against the wall. Having decided that if you leave them just like that, they will run away, and who knows what will happen later, the young man binds the bandits. With one blow of the sword, he breaks the castle that men could not open. Doko Chusen freezes in place, not believing his eyes. In front of it is a room filled with valuable things. The young man thinks how many these treasures can stand. He looks at the golden figurine and thinks that the Black Dragon stole all this in people. The guy is outraged by the actions of the faction. He puts a figurine in a bag with many of the same figures. Doko Chusen sees that many objects have names. He thinks that he can be able to return all the owners. He decides to take something with himself and get out of here. Choosing things, he thinks that you still need to take a little to repair the institution. Hochkua again and again throws the nucleus into the enemy. The chief leader of the Black Dragon faction from the elevation is watching the course of the battle. A man reflects on the veracity of rumors about a spiritual blade, and he thinks what made him come to their fraction. Looking at the devastating around, he understands that the righteous can be forgotten about revenge. They can simply destroy them. A man does not want to give up so easy. An unexpected thought appears in his head. He thinks that if you take that girl and escape, then they will be able to get to their feet again. Doko Musen hears a prayer for help. He sees in front of him a captive with her hands stuck in shackles, asking to save her. Namgun easily beats off the nuclei, unravelly flying into it. But the senior leader of the Black Dragon faction continues to attack. The balls beaten off by a young master are imprisoned by men, which even more angers Ho Chua. Warriors in the crowd attack Namgun, but the guy easily, as if playing, repel them and attack. Ho Chua stubbornly continues to throw the nuclei, hoping that he will be able to hit the enemy. The man thinks that if everything goes on, then this monster will destroy them. His hand squeezes two cores that he prepares for a throw. He is trying to concentrate, but he does it well. Ho Chua makes an incredibly powerful throw. Namgun prepared to repel his attack. Doko Chusen, who freed his hand, listens to her gratitude. The former captive sits on the floor, rubbing his wrists. The young man, looking at her, thinks, "Is there really such beautiful girls in Jinan?" But at the same time, he mentally adds that she, of course, is not as good as Madame and Ilan. The girl asks for forgiveness for delivering him troubles, but she has a request for him. She seems to be the daughter of Pichelbach from the Golden Dragon Security Bureau. Her name is Soin. The girl asks the guy to help her get out of here. Doko Chusen is struck by the fact that she is the daughter of the famous wise gold finer Kan Pichelbach. The Security Bureau of the Golden Dragon is known not only in the province of Shandun, but throughout the north from the Yangtze River. This is the most prestigious organization of this kind in the entire region. Its owner is no less famous. Unlike other merchants who are interested in only people's money, he spends all his strength on the fulfillment of the true duty of the Security Bureau. Despite wealth, the man behaves wisely and humbly. Therefore, everyone calls his wise gold detector. Noticing that the young man froze, the girl was worried and asked, "Is everything all right?" Having come to his senses, Doko Chusen assures that everything is fine, and he asks how she found herself here. Soin says that they were attacked when she traveled around the central lands, and when she came to her senses, she was already here. She does not know what happened to the people who accompanied her. She continued to talk about what was still here. People from a Black Dragon often came here. She heard that they tried to contact her family and demand a ransom. Doko Chusen thinks a Black Dragon is worse than animals. He says that he understands what happened to the mistress. The young man promises to try to pull her out of here. He is going to state her escape plan. Suddenly recalls the circumstances that he forgot about. Doko Chusen understands that while there is a battle, it will be difficult for him to slip away from here with the girl. The young man thinks that Namgun believes that it was he who had an ambush. If he meets him now, then the young master will be furious. He decides that it is worth avoiding this meeting, at all costs. The girl excitedly asks what he was thinking about. She is unpleasantly surprised when the guy says she cannot help her. Soin asks, wasn't he bursting into the estate, and why refuses to help her? He answers her that the reason is simple. He is a thief. Namgun continues to bravely fight with numerous opponents. He looks at the haze laying around him. The attack stops. Warriors are perplexed. Where did their older brother Ho Chua go? Gavanpen cannot believe what happened. Warriors panic, realizing that they will not cope with the young master. They decide to run as well as the senior leader of the faction. Gavanpen shouts after them, but he is not able to stop them. The man is left alone with the Nemo gun. Only one thought beats in his head. Save. Soin cannot believe that the young man refuses to help her. The girl thinks about what he told her. She meticulously looks at his clothes and a bag standing next to him. Soin comes to the conclusion that the guy did not lie to her. He is dressed exactly like a thief. She is unpleasantly amazed. How could this happen that of all people, some kind of thief saved her? She does not even know what to answer. Finally, she hesitantly says that everything is in order. Doko Chusen disgraces incredulously if he misheard. The girl replies that everyone who walks under the sky is equal. so it is impossible to allow any discrimination on the basis of the profession. She decides that it does not matter that the guy is a thief. He is her savior, and this fact will not change anything. Soin tells the young man that if he helps her get out of here, then he will never have to steal and envy someone else's wealth again. She will tell her father to give him so much money that they will never end with him. Chusen thinks that the girl is very persistent. The young man about the fact that even if she pays, he still will not be able to make the impossible, upset the young person. But Chusen says that this can do the one who attacked this place and allowed him to slip into the warehouse. The girl asks who we are talking about. She thinks the guy is talking about his accomplice, but he objects. This is not a partner. He just took advantage of this person. Soin asks, who's he talking about? Namgun, who has overcome all enemies, hears a scream for help. The young master does not think incredulously why some woman screams in such a place. He believes that it can be a trap. Several men block the path to him, Gvanpin in confusion. He realizes that he had a new problem, and he wonders how the captive could get out of the warehouse. He understands that if a girl returns home, then you can forget about the revival of a black dragon. They will be destroyed altogether. The chief leader of the faction, looking at the alarmed young man, thinks that he cannot be allowed to know about Soin. Namgun reflects that the young master hero had to come here. He is perplexed how much he still needs to defeat people to appear. 2 men attack the guy from the back of the guy. He easily copes with them, but he believes that they crossed the line. He thinks that these guys are one of those who begin to understand something only if they are completely crushed. Suddenly, his attention is attracted by the runaway Gvanpen. Namgun decides that a man is in a hurry in search of a young master. He follows him. The guy hears a cry for help and gross abuse again. He sees how a man grabs Soin's hand. Namgun is amazed at the beauty of the young lady. It came to his mind that the young master hero may not suit any traps. Gvanpin shouts to the captive and insults her. The young man no longer wants to listen to this, and protrudes from the shadows, blocking the man's path. The chief leader of the faction asks if the guy knows who he is, but that one blow of the sword makes him shut up. Namgun asks the girl how she feels. She thanks her savior, and is interested in those who he is. The young man seems to be. He calls his name, and says that he is usually called a spiritual blade. They continue the conversation, during which the girl notices that, of course, judging by his strength, he cannot be an ordinary person. The guy admires her beauty. He is pleased that she heard about him. Soin seems to be. She says that she heard that their bureau has long been connected with the Namgun family. He cannot believe that her father is the owner of the Golden Dragon. But the girl confirms that this is so. She promises to tell him more and more after they get out of here, and he asks if he will help her. Namgun promises to withdraw her from here. She notices that something confuses him and asks what is wrong. It turns out that the guy noticed related bandits and does not understand what they are doing here. Soin says they guarded her, but she fled as soon as a chance turned out to be. The guy is amazed at her strength. He invites her to follow him. Turning around, the girl winks slyly and raises up the index finger. Chusen is hiding from prying eyes, not forgetting to hide a bag of gold. He is striking in the behavior of the girl. He wonders whether she had to prove that she was the daughter of the head of the security bureau. And he is also perplexed why she had to poke that he owed her. He thinks that she is very naive, believing him from the first word that he is a thief. Moon regrets the missed reward, but he believes that first of all, you need to think about your life. He stretches with pleasure, thinking that the day was very long, and if now he has money for repairing the taverns, then they must be given to Mr. Mak Chusen. On the streets of the city is crowded. People are in a hurry about their business. A surprised man asks the interlocutor, does he say seriously? The guy confirms. The Black Dragon Mansion is completely destroyed. This happened in one night. The man cuts off the conversation and is in a hurry to leave. When asked by the guy where he is in a hurry, he replies that he needs to pick up 5 silk rolls that people from this faction stole from him. The young man shouts after him that he is not the only one smart. A breathless man tries to break through the crowd, but he is ordered to stand in line. People are pushing and trying to get around others to be the first. A man with a bag in his hands rejoices and mutters that with such money he will be able to build a whole store. People from the queue are interested in, where did he get so many coins from? The man says that this is simply because the Black Dawn stole them from him. But they object to him that here is stolen by a black dragon. The man is clearly embarrassed. Furious guys say that they have never seen him here. He pleads his guilt, throws a bag and runs away. The guy says that he has been living here for 20 years, and he dares to lie to him. Some person who came out of the warehouse reports that there is almost empty there. The guy is furious due to the fact that he received nothing. People decide that it cannot be that the loot is stored only here. They decide to search the entire estate. In the market, the merchant offers to buy cheap sweets. Another seller invites to taste a barbecue from the chicken. Another man calls not to miss his chance. People stop near him and look at the books. 2 people eat barbecue. The guy tells the man that he spent too much money on the way to return his silk. He replies that he never thought that he would see them again. As if with easy money I got. They are building guesses about who brought the black dragon to such a state. The guy says they saw a mask there and a mask there. His friend suggests that this could be a young master hero. His interlocutor agrees with him. He says that the guy had already punished all sorts of villains, and this time he chose a black dragon. They decide that it is time to call him just a master hero. The guy tells the head of the martial arts school, Kanchahal, latest news. He says that the black dragon is destroyed by the very person who previously challenged him. The old man replies that he had not seen such furious fighters for a long time. An elderly man is sure that heaven sent him to punish evil. His interlocutor replies that he did not know why everyone was thinking that he was so good. Now he understands his celebrity. Namgun asks Soin how she likes food. The girl replies that she was a lot of where she was while traveling, but this tavern is the best. The guy says that he always comes here when it happens in Jinan. He believes that it is noisy here today. A few days ago some fighters brought a bustle, and now they repair this place. But if it interferes with the girl, he can ask them to behave quieter. His companion suits everything, and he recommends that she try pork. Doko Chusen brings them ordered dishes. He carefully examines young people, and he concludes that Namgun fell in love. He decides that he no longer has reasons to fight with a guy. The young man hopes that everything will be fine with them. The owner of the tavern is interested in what he is laughing. The man tells him to tell about the reason for his fun, and does not want to listen to any excuses. But the young man transfers the conversation to another topic. He is interested in how the second institution is being prepared. Mak Chu-san replies that since the guy got the money for the repair, they are ready to start the business. They begin to discuss the damage inflicted by the tavern and plan its repair. Doko Chusen says that now villains regret their act. The owner replies that perhaps that is why they gave them money for repairs. The man did not expect that the young man would go and ask them for money. He replies that he was just lucky. On the floor of the rooms there are gold figurines. Doko Chusen is sitting and looking at the figures. He thinks that he took them to find the owners, but no one seemed to be. Chegel Chanya, who is in his estate, asks what his interlocutor thinks about this. He carefully examines the scroll. The man is sure that the document says the truth. Of course, we are talking about P.E. Enkheim. His interlocutor is interested in where his uncle took out the papers. But Chegel Chanya puts a finger to his lips, asking him to shut up. He says that he will entrust him with the translation of this ancient document. The man warns that no one should know about this. It is also forbidden to create duplicates. He orders to do it secret, and not to tell anyone. Madam and Ian walking along the corridor. She recalls a recent conversation. The young man tells the girl the news that he heard from other family members a couple of days ago. With Ian, he could not believe that his father suddenly wanted to send her to Muram's League to Habai. She thinks, can it be that it is he who spreads rumors? The girl enters her father's room. He is a little surprised by her arrival, and is interested in the purpose of her visit. The girl says that she recently has so many thoughts. Therefore she did not go to him at all and did not greet him. With ENS asks for forgiveness. The man says that she hardly came here to say hello. He asks what she wants to tell him. She is interested. Is it true that he wants to poison her in the Muram League? Father says everything is true. With EN is outraged that he did not even warn her. Father objects what he told her. He called her several times, but she did not come. Therefore, he left a letter in her wards. The girl looks at him in bewilderment and recalls recent events. The maid gives the girl a letter, saying that she found him under the door. With EN is surprised that nothing is written on the envelope. Her interlocutor asks, is it really a love letter? The same as those that she received before. With EN gives her an unopened letter and asks to burn with the rest. The girl says that her fans should know that contacting her is just rudeness. All sorts of rumors about her will also go. She recalls that even after this day, she repeatedly put letters under the door. It turned out that their father wrote them. Stunned by an understanding of her oversight, the girl stands, dangling her head. She does not know what to say. The man asks why the daughter is so surprised. Didn't she open them? With EN replies that she simply forgot their content. Chegel-chanya asks what she says, but the girl decides to better pretend that nothing happened, if only not to upset her father. She refers to the fact that she has a lot of thoughts. He is interested. What is she thinking about? And he asks, did he not write to her in a letter that she needed to send something to her sisters in the League of Murim? The girl can only bow her head. The man says that he asked her to prepare, because he will soon send her there with an assignment. He asks, she can't hear about it for the first time? The girl says that she remembers everything. Father sighs with relief. He says that she is one of the pillars on which their family stands. The girl, agreeing with him and promising to remember it, is inclined in a slight bow. With he asks what kind of things she should bring. The father replies that she is secret, and to anyone but his family members, he would never entrust her. The girl thinks that she has no idea what it is, but she is sure that this is necessary to restore the reputation of their family. He reports that on the way it will be accompanied by people from the Golden Dragon Security Agency. They will be here soon. He asks her to prepare in advance. A reassured girl leaves the room. Father looks after her. Without turning around, he reports that he has left with En and you can go out. Behind him, a man appears in a cloak. Mantonsh is glad that everything worked, as was planned. Chegel Chanya agrees with him. He says that the man predicted everything correctly. He gratifying his head, and thanks for the praise. They talk about a girl who continues to move more and more from the room where they are. Father still cannot believe that she surrendered so quickly. His interlocutor replies that everyone wants to be good children in the eyes of their parents. The girl thinks that you need to go to the Tavern Oval tomorrow. Chegel Chanya hopes that his daughter does not feel too guilty. Manstanshi says that they need to cope with this risk in order to achieve the goal. He is sure that as soon as the girl arrives in the Murim League, half of the plan will be already fulfilled. Chegel Chanya says goodbye to the guest, saying that he is counting on him. He adds that the translation of the document will take about 7 days, and maybe more. Mantonsh is surprised that the Chegel family has already begun to work with his papers. The owner of the house replies that he cannot be lazy when he works so hard. There is a man on the steps of the security bureau of the Golden Dragon. His thoughts are engaged in anxiety about the health of the owner. He hopes that he will recover soon. He sees a servant runs to him with all his feet. A man asks a person who breathes heavily after running, what happened? He rushes the servant with an answer. He still cannot start speaking. After what he reports, vanity begins. Dako Chusen masterfully beats off the colonels flying into it. Ho Chua continues to attack him constantly. The young master makes a lightning-fast movement with a blade. Hike Undu attacks him from the back. He barely manages to dodge a powerful blow with a sword. The young man is preparing for a new attack. The nuclei begin to fall on top of it, but the guy only compresses the handle of the blade tightly. He thinks that you need to concentrate his chi on the sword. He carefully looks at his weapons, but there is no time to be distracted. The enemy again attacks him. Doko Chusen sits on the ground and thinks that it is very difficult to support ki swords when he moves. The last time he succeeded, because the situation was extremely dangerous, and he did it subconsciously. Namgun masterfully supports Qi during the battle. He is sure that in Murim there are many people like a young master. He understands that with the skills like him now, he will not be able to protect the mistress with En. The young man wants to become so strong as to protect her from all troubles. He does not leave his thought to become the best blade Sinzile. Soin, sitting at the table, thanks Namgun for accompanying her, and says that she needs to leave somewhere. The guy replies that he also wants to take a walk, but reminds the girl about safety. She agrees with him and smiles back. Namgun tells the girl that it seems that she has disappeared earrings. If she lost her, then he is ready to give her a new one. Soin replies that she sent her with a letter to her parents, so that they knew that everything was in order with her. A few days later, the guard will take her. The young man asks her not to refuse to accept the second earring from him as a gift. With En, Doko's garbage says that she needs to go on behalf of her father to the Murim League to the sisters. To the guy's question, when she returns, the girl replies that it is possible in a month, or even 2. She asks why he needs to know this. The guy says that she is a frequent guest in their institution, and if she stops walking, then the sales will fall. And then, he adds that it will not be so comfortable here. Yes, and someone will have to give her place. The girl interrupts his babble. She says she realized what he was worried about. He replies that he does not even understand himself. With En tells him that her father entrusted her this task, so she wants to regularly fulfill it. She says she does not want to upset him. Doko Chusen is upset by news. The owner calls the guy and asks him to go down. The young man thinks about the Murim League. The owner of the tavern complains that during the pogrom, a pot of branded broth was injured. And this is a special dish that is aged in this special bowl for years. Dako Chusen is interested in whether they can find the same broth in the Murim League. The man says that it was there that one master taught him to cook. Chusen tells the guy to go there and get the broth for him. The young man objects that people from the security agency better cope with this task. The owner answers him that he is not a cook, so he does not understand anything about this. He explains to the guy that, speaking with the terms of Muram, it is like getting an object that improves chi from his master. Chusen is sure that many people will want to get such a treasure. Therefore, he cannot entrust this task to anyone else. The young man thinks about whether he can see Madame with Anne there. The man reminds him that he wanted to open his glass. He promises him that on the day when he brings him the broth, he will give him the second institution that is preparing for the discovery. Chusen asks the guy does he like such a business capacity? The guy answers the question to the question. He is interested in, when is he better to return? Riders rush along the forest road. At the head, a man jumps in a fluttering cloak. He rinses his companions, saying that they need to get to Jinan as quickly as possible. Men are ready to do everything to execute the command. Huan Chan-su, the chief of the Golden Dragon Bureau, looks at the earring lying in his palms. He rejoices that the lady is alive. He thinks that the owner will be happy, and he is also pleased that they can save on expenses on the trip, thanks to the Chegol family. Salt Sosh, looking at the road suit Doko Gusen, says she thought so. It looks just fine on it. He even reminds her of her husband. The woman asks the young man to be careful on the road. Doko Chusen says she took care of his house while he is away. Yukva's son asks how far he is going. The boy is afraid that the guy will no longer return. Doko Chusen replies that as soon as he completes the task, he will return. The kid asks to bring him a gift. The older brother shakes Horan for boring the guy. The young man looks at the quarrel of the boys. He tells the guys that while he is not, they must behave well. They nod. Salt Sosh and children say goodbye to the guy and wish him a successful road. The young man goes to fulfill the assignment of the owner. Doko Chusen enters the tavern and asks the young servant, can he eat? He welcomes the guy, and he is interested. Will he be alone or have he have satellites? The guest asks to give him a room and makes an order. Doko Musen is waiting for him to be held. The guy calls the mother and reports that they have a visitor. He says that the young man ordered dumplings and noodles. The guy recalls his work in the tavern Chushana. He thinks that he began to work in a glass at about the same age. Doko Chusen says he prefers to eat in the room and asks to spend it. The guy is meditating, holding the blade in his hands. He thinks that it is necessary to concentrate in one place. The young man rises in the middle of the room, holding a shining sword in his hands. He makes them a couple of waves and starts training. He performs the technique of the wing of the white raven. His hand tightly squeezes the handle of the sword. He performs the landing of a white crow and continues to practice. Doko Chusen makes another wave of a blade. He turns out to be conceived. He thinks that somehow he managed to do this while he was calm and concentrated. But, unfortunately, so far the two techniques are in motion are its limit. The young man decides that for today he will be enough. He unfolds the card and looks exactly where he is now. Doko Chusen thinks that it would be nice to practice ki while he is on the road. He looks at the card. The owner of the tavern told him that the fastest way to get there is through the north. Get dark. Chigilchanya walks around the yard of the estate. He appears on the threshold of the room, and he asks the person who is there, how are you doing with the translation? The young man sleeps at the table. The man thinks that the guy is too diligent. Chegilchanya sees that he translated about 5 parts of the document. Who would have thought that the devilish sword, which disappeared from Muram immediately after he broke all the groups, would leave behind something? And it doesn't matter if it will fall into good hands or bad ones. Muram will never be the same again. The servant escorts Doko Gusen, surprised that he is leaving so early. The young man sees a broom in his hands. He recalls his first training, when the same tool of labor replaced him a sword. He gives advice. When you wave a broom, it is better to do it in a place where there is no ceiling. Looking at the map, the young man understands that today a long road awaits him. He decides that he needs to move faster. His path lies through the forest. Doko Chusen walks along the road. Tall trees grow around, and the blue sky is visible at the top. Suddenly, strangers block the road to him. One of them requires money, and the second threatens with a knife. Laying men on the ground was not difficult for a guy. He weighs prey in his hand, a bag of coins. The young man continues his way. Suddenly, he sees a guy sitting on the ground. He barely restrains tears. Doko Chusen is interested in what happened to him. The young man says that he was attacked by robbers. Then Doko Chusen gives him money and reports that he dealt with his offenders. The guy thanks him and invites him to continue the journey in his wagon. The guy gets comfortable, and they continue to move towards the goal. In the evening, they sitting by the fire have dinner together. And in the morning, the guys say goodbye. Here their paths diverge. The young man looks after a new acquaintance, and then he studies the card. Chusen decides that he is in place. The young man reached the mountain range of Sorakan. The height of the mountains here is small, but most of them are stone, so people prefer other travel routes. But this is the fastest road to Habai. Chusen believes that uncomfortable soil will help him with training. Trying his foot pebbles, he thinks that he can get comfortable with ki. He starts training. The guy decides that it is necessary to focus not only on ki swords, but also to look around. Musun tightly squeezes the handle of the sword. It seems to him that now he can support chi swords much longer than before. When he was just starting, he managed to keep her no longer than a quarter of an hour. Now, at least half an hour. Chusen was decently exhausted and decides to relax and continue the training tomorrow. He goes to look for brushwood and a place where you can break the camp. The young man is surprised by the unexpectedly strong gust of wind. He thinks that it may rain and decides to find the cave. On the way between the rocks, the horse detachment jumps. Their commander says that there will be a downpour soon. He orders the camp. The man thinks that they need to achieve Jinan as quickly as possible. The lady is waiting for them. Mentally, he asks her to wait a little more. Soin sits by the window and looks at the rain. The person who entered says she can catch a cold. The girl thinks that Chef Juan is late. She is worried and hopes that nothing unforeseen happened. Musan is in a hurry to hide from the rain. He manages to find a cave, but there is also water, and he decides to go deeper. He sees some inscriptions on the rock. Chegelchanya, holding a glass in his hand, asks the guest, does he like the house? He is glad of the arrival of Mans of Tonch. His interlocutor likes the estate. He would have stayed here longer, but he could not. The owner of the house offers a man to occupy the whole residence if he wants. Man Tonch replies that he appreciates the offer, but so far it cannot answer. He is too used to wandering. He is interested. Why did Chegelchanya call him? And were there any problems with the plan? The head of the Chegal family replies that so far everything is going well. And he called him because he wanted to hand these documents. The man hands him a bag of papers. In Sorakin, rain pours. Behind the rain wall, the entrance to the cave is barely visible. Chusen looks at the letters on the wall, but the darkness in the cave prevents him from reading the inscription. We have to resort to new knowledge. His vision becomes unusually sharp and darkness is no longer a hindrance to him. An inscription is carved on the wall. The sword has a limit. He understands that he did not seem to him. The young man thinks about what this may mean. He screams deep into the cave, "Is there anyone here?" And then he decides to go a little further. He goes along the dark passage. The young man moves further and further, but nothing more unusual is found in his way. Suddenly, he sees a greenish radiance in front. He enters the expanding part of the cave, on the ceiling of which the green hemisphere shines. The amazed young man looks at her intently. Then his gaze glides along the walls and objects located around. He is amazed at what he saw, and tries to understand who could do this in a cave. You can't just smooth out a stone. But what was open to his eyes further is shocking the guy. The head of the house Chigal says Mans Tonch that the transfer is finished only half. But he admires the work done, and says that he himself would not have managed this in 6 months. He considers the documents and says that almost everything here. According to the translation, the secret cave of the Sword of the Devil, near Shandun. But its exact location is unknown, since the second part of the document is encrypted. Man Tonch decides that if a place nearby, then they may not rush with their plan regarding En. Chegelchanya asks the guest the question. Is he going to leave when the translation will be completed? The guest asks him to calm down. He will leave only when he finishes with everything that he entrusted to him. The head of the house Chegel thanks him. Man Tonch believes that without a document, no one can find a secret cave, where the devil's sword left his things. In front of Doko, a skeleton sits in half, stroke clothing, near which there is a small box. The young man looks at him carefully. He understands that this is a shelter of Kain, those who find what they are looking for, without harm to others. But he knows that there are those who are ready to go to anything to get the desired. They are called the Inf. Most of them have long cut the hands of the Murim League. Often who left a mortal life ended in secret shelters. In addition, they leave all their knowledge to the one who finds this place in the future. The young man understands that he managed to find a treasure. He carefully touches the box. Chusen carefully examines the chest that fell into his hands. Removing the lid, he takes out the manuscript from there. He begins to read. An unknown person writes that out of hundreds of names called him, he prefers only one thing. This name is a devilish sword. The young man is surprised. He never heard of such a person. He continues to read carefully. He understands that the owner of the manuscript was a great master. A person writes that he began to study the art of a sword for far from such a special reason. He just wanted to win the heart of a woman he loved. Chusen thinks that they are like him. He recalls the lady with En, but then he returns to reading again, and he recognizes the story of the one who sits in front of him now with a silent skeleton. A young man named Juice works in the field. He hears him a hurry, complaining that he is busy for too long. The man who watched him says that he had too little, and threatens to leave him without dinner. The girls walking by smile. The young man is staring at them, and then he receives a blow to the head from a man forbidding him to stare around. He is not able to withstand the enemy superior in growth and strength. One of the girls slyly looks at him. People work in the field. Girls continue to follow the road. Finally, they sit down to relax under a tree. They discuss the desire of one of them to marry a good swordsman, but in the district, there is no one who would engage in martial arts. A passing Juice hears their conversation. One of the girls shouts to the guy that her friend wants to marry the swordsman. She says, if the guy begins to train, then maybe they will have a wedding. Her friend only embarrassedly looks at the young man. He, looking at her, makes the most important decision in his life. The next morning he tries to train but breaks the hoe. For what he gets from a man of interest to a man of what he will now work now. But he does not give up and makes himself a wooden blade. He is trying very hard but quickly gets tired. The young man stubbornly continues to train. The man constantly scolds him for this. But then, noticing his efforts and perseverance, he begins to give tips. He indicates that it is the young man who performs incorrectly and how to do it. In the Juice, gratitude seduces his words. Over time, he begins to control the sword better and better. He is changed, turning into a stately and handsome guy. In the Juice, hears his name to help in the field. Turning around, he sees a girl who loves him, standing with a knot in his hands. She winches him slyly. Suddenly bandits appear, the purpose of which is to rob the village. One of them tells the girl to give everything she has. The villains are going to not only take away all the good from people, but also kill everyone. Men go to a girl helplessly on the road. Their faces do not portend anything good, but the guy bravely rushes to her defense. The villains stop bewilderment. In the hands of the young man is a training sword. A frightened girl looks at the Juice. He promises to protect her. On the ground lies one of the bandits. A friend froze nearby. The young man goes to the rest of the bandits. They swear and ask, does he know who they are? He doesn't care. He firmly intends to protect the girl. His hand squeezes the handle tightly. He rushes on the attack on a man holding a cyst in his hand. The villains, outraged by his courage, decide to teach the guy. He fearlessly decides to withstand the whole vatag. One of them is working on a pussy, and the ball almost hurts the Juice. The bandit threatens to teach him a lesson, and if he behaves well, he will die quickly. But the young man easily reflects the blow. He firmly intends to protect the girl to the last breath. He alone is opposed to numerous opponents. The girl leads the peasants to the aid, but the guy had already dealt with the villains. People are amazed at his courage. In the Juice, they ask, did he suffer? Men thanks to him to save the village. They notice that he is wounded, and decide to call a doctor. The young man thinks that only martial arts allowed him to protect his beloved girl. He is very glad that he succeeded. But at the same time, he understands that he needs to be stronger. In the Juice offers sparring to a young warrior. He is outraged and wants to teach him. The man promises to give his sword if he overwhelms it, and he suggests showing everything he is capable of. The young man wins. To become stronger, he goes to the plains. This was his first appearance in Murim. He calls to the battle of famous martial arts. They begin to recognize him. One of the opponents promises to deal with him. His luck will end today. They go to battle and cross their swords. The enemy is sure that one who does not have control over chi can never block his blade. He promises that this is the reason for the defeat of his enemy. But John manages to win, and since then they began to call him a devilish sword. No one can break his blade, so he continues his journey in search of the strongest. He fights with the most famous warriors Murim, and always wins. But together with the battles comes disappointment. Therefore, he decides to hide. But even in hermit life, he strives for training. To make the blade uncontrollable, turn the weapon into supernatural power, is the dream of anyone who has a sword. So he turned 70 years old, and he achieved everything he wanted. Everyone in this world praised and respected him, but he had to meet with feelings that he hid for a long time. Settlement. Emptiness. Only then did he recall the reason why he decided to become a swordsman. Only then did he decide to find her. But she had left this world a long time ago. He had no chance to see her beautiful face. His skills absorbed his goals, and without a goal, there was no sense to continue. He decided to rip off his stomach. He has nothing more left, so there should have been its end. At that time, he heard that an interesting person appeared in the plains. Anyone who knows how to abduct. Sin Suje, Han Queer. At first, John thought that Han Queer was a sinking that lives in lust. But in reality, everything turned out to be different. Sin Suje admires the kidnapped girl. He says that he likes to just look at her. In the juice, this habit of a person wearing a red, ugly mask became curious. Soon, the head of the criminal was cut off by the group sent by the Gup family. But the man was surprised by his last words. What is this in a simple desire to possess beauty? It was strange to hear this from a villain who abducted people. But on the other hand, he envied his confidence. He did not worry about the opinions of others and his reputation. Instead, he just went to his goal. In the juice writes that he did not want to leave a legacy behind. But he realized that he still wanted at least something left after his death. He bequeaths his knowledge to the one who finds his manuscript. But do not think that they become a teacher and student. He wants only one thing so that his involuntary heir never forgot the reason that made him move forward. A tent is broken on a rocky site. In the middle, despite the rain, there are 2 warriors. The man turns to the boss and reports that he ordered people to relax. He receives an order to be vigilant and change the sentries every hour. As soon as the storm subsides, they will continue. The warrior leaves. His boss remains to stand. He thinks that he will not be easy, but he is ready to take a chance. He recalls that there was a lot of people who have found their last refuge here. It is better for him to find better space for the practice of martial arts. The rain pours constantly. The man, hearing an incomprehensible sound, turns into bewilderment. Chusen stands in front of the skeleton. The reason he began to engage in martial arts is the girl's heart. He went along this path to please the lady with En. The young man is sure that nothing has changed. He still wants to protect her from all adversity. He is sure that he will become a blade Sinzile. Suddenly, the book lit up with a bluish radiance. The guy looks at her in amazement. The energy emanating from it transforms the guy, changes his aura, penetrates into the brain. Chusen falls in front of the elder's devil's sword, asking him to accept his gratitude. The skeleton looks at him with black inhabitants of the eye sockets. The young man continues to thank him for such a generous favor. Cracks appear on the skull. The skeleton in front of the young man turns into dust. He stands silently, looking at the remains of a once great warrior. Chusen goes to the exit from the cave. Going out, the guy sees that the rain is still pouring, but he is ready to move forward. His body is protected by unusually strong energy. Chusen believes that if you keep the aura at the right level, then he will not get wet. He understands that now he is not afraid of the vagaries of nature. He literally soars above the ground. The young man moves freely through huge boulders. Realizing the possibility of his body, he decides that he should go on the road. Chusen continues his way. Now it is not a hindrance to him. He himself is striking in his ability in the cave. Now he easily runs through the air. He does not even understand how he succeeds. The young man realizes that all this thanks to the martial arts of the old man of the devilish sword that leaked from the book. He could now read it all, but he has no idea what to do with this knowledge. But he is not going to transfer them to someone. Now he understands why the old man did not want the relationship of the teacher and the student. An unexpected noise attracts his attention. He asks the question, "What was it?" For a while the guy is listening. He hears loud cries for help. Chusen rushes in the direction from which he heard the voices. He sees how some people seek to free a person whose leg crushed a stone. They are trying to move the boulders to free the victim. Another person is carried on a stretcher. The man manages to pull out from under the blockage. A man on a stretcher clearly experiences severe pain. The young man continues to observe what is happening. Chef Juan says that everyone who can help the wounded. It is necessary to get out of here as soon as possible, because it is not known when the next landslide can occur. The warrior reports that most of the horses died under the rubble. But the man brings herself away from him, saying that first of all it is necessary to help people. Someone screams that people were still under the rubble. The Chef Juan looks up wary. He screams, realizing that the irreparable will happen now. He is trying to warn his people about the new landslide. Chusen rushes to his aid. He practices the technique of the master of the sword. His body, radiating extraordinary energy, hovers high above the ground. The Chef Juan is trying to keep the boulder impending on him. Then he in bewilderment realizes that the stones have stopped. He looks up, trying to understand what happened. And he does not believe his eyes when he sees the reason for the stop of the rockfall. They ask him, "Are everyone intact?" In front of him with a sword in his hand stands Chusen. He looks at a man inquiringly, but he is not able to say a word. Then he bows in a bow. And he says that he, Huan Chan-su, the chief of the Bureau of the Golden Dragon, expresses his gratitude to the master. Thanks to him, they are saved. The man thinks that even though the guy looks young, he is a magnificent master. Most likely he is Qi Ying, who lives here as a hermit. The young man replies that he will accept his gratitude later. The man does not understand what he was talking about. He looks after the removing young man. He calmly goes in the rain, but his clothes are dry. He goes to the rubble. Looking at how the young man envelops the flow of powerful energy, the man thinks, is it a person in front of him? Obeying the desire of the young man, the stones fly apart. A person freed from under the blockage looks at him incredulously. The second man sitting on the ground is so amazed that even a word cannot say. The chef Juan, no less surprised than his subordinate, stands behind the guy's back. Chusen thinks that he has overdid it. It was an emergency situation, and he used a lot of ki. He understands that it does not matter how much he received knowledge from the elder of the devilish sword. The number of ki has not changed. He sighs tiredly. The salvation of people took a lot of effort from him. The men released from under the blockage thank him. Chusen tells the soldiers to help the wounded. The victims are transferred to shelter. Chef Juan thanks the guy for his help. He replies that it is quite natural to help people in trouble. The man thinks that he is a very modest guy, despite the fact that he has strong skills in martial arts. He wants to make contact with him. Musen asks what they forgot in such a remote place. Chef Juan does not want to call the exact cause, but it reports that they went here, since they urgently need to get to Jinan. The young man understands that the cause is Soyen. They sit by the fire and continue the conversation. Chusen rejoices that his ki has already recovered. Looking out of the cave, he sees that the rain has stopped, and decides that it is time to speak. He thanks for tea and is going to leave, but Chef Hohana stops him. He wants to repay the young man for his kindness. The man thinks that with such force, he will be able to restore the guard bureau of the Yellow Dragon. He wants to make friends with the guy. Chusen refuses the board, but the chief Hings insists. The man offers him 5,000 silver coins. The young man thinks that everything is much more troublesome than he thought. After all, he just wanted to save people, and at the same time, test the knowledge gained. He replies to the chief who understands his feelings, but there is no need for this. Looking at the lying sword, he tries to explain why he helped them. He says the reason is the man himself. Chef Juan does not understand what it is about, and the young man asks what he did when he saw a stone falling on him. The man replies that he tried to cut him in order to save the wounded. The young man said he saw it, and he would have enough skills to deal with the boulder. Chusen says that a man would survive, but he tried to save others at the cost of his life. The guy could not help them, but with his actions the man did not leave him a choice. Chusen says that in a sense it was he who saved them. He is even ashamed that he did not rush to the rescue immediately. Chef Juan feels awkward because he did not understand the guy's actions, but the young man asks him not to speak like that. He thanks for hospitality and is going to leave. Chusen feels relief. He believes that if everything will continue to be involved in this, he will fall into problems. He seeks to quietly leave home, but he is naked again. Behind him is the Chef Juan. He asks how the name of their savior. The guy thinks for a moment. He does not want to call himself. It seems to him that then something can happen in the future, and he is looking for an answer in the knowledge of the elder of the devilish sword. The man is interested in what he thought so much about. He is waiting for an answer to the question asked. The young man replies that his name is a devilish sword. He is bored with conversations, and he is rapidly leaving the society of a man. Chef Juan understands that the young man was simply teleported. He is sure that this is a rejuvenated master. There are various dishes on the table. Soin sits at the table, biting his lower lip. Namgun smiles affably at the girl. They sit at the table against each other. The servant stands nearby, waiting for orders. The young man asks Soin to eat until it cooled. The girl thanks him. She tries the dish, and thinks that she is already bad from the fact that she has eaten the same last 5 days. Chusen grins that someone does not like his food. The servant says that a new order was received for 2 portions of noodles. Reluctantly chewing, the girl thinks about when people from the security agency come. She worries, thinking that something could happen to them. Namgun is interested in why she does not want to eat anymore. Is she really not to her taste? His interlocutor replies that she is simply unwell, and she wants to go to rest. Namgun asks worriedly, what happened? He wants to go to the pharmacy and bring the medicine. She refuses, saying that nothing serious. She just needs to lie down a little. The girl goes to her room and goes to bed. She thinks that all men are the same. She believes that Namgun has no advantages except one. He is not even 30, but he has already made a reputation for himself. The girl decides to use loneliness and sleep well, but to fulfill the Namgun, which was knocking at the door, does not allow her to fulfill her. She believes that the guy is too annoying, but he reports that people from the security agency are looking for her on the ground floor. In the hall of the taverns is the Chef Juan. The owner is interested in Desik, who came to them. He replies that this is the head of the Golden Dragon Security Agency. Chusen, looking at an important guest, tells the servant that he would prepare to make money. Chef Juan hears his name by name. Turning around, he sees a girl hurrying towards him. Bowing in a bow, he asks for forgiveness for being late. But Soin says that everything is in order. She is glad to see him. The man asks to provide him with a restroom, and they decide to talk later for food. Hungry men are pounced on food. The waiter is asked to bring new dishes and wine. The owner of the tavern promises tips to the servants and asks them to serve customers faster. Chef Juan is amazed at acquaintance with a spiritual blade. The girl represents men to each other, and he says that her savior is Namgun. Soin is interested in the reason for their delay. She carefully listens to the story of the journey. The chief of the Bureau of the Golden Dragon says that if not for the guy who came to their aid, they would have died. The girl asks the name of their savior. The man replies that his name is a devilish sword. Namgun is listening to the story about the hermit who lives at the mountain and cut a stone the size of a house with one blow, like a small pebbles. Chef Juan continues to say that he looked 20 years old. He seems to have reached legendary rejuvenation. If he appears in Murim, he will probably become the second of the 10 great masters. If he is seen in public, then the outcome will be one. Having reached the education, he will finally end his background. The man summed up his story. The girl is surprised that she never heard of such a master. Chef Juan, looking at the face of Namgun, asks what happened and how does he feel. He replies that everything is fine. Just overthrough. He is going to the pharmacy. Soin says they will wait for him here. Namgun hastily goes out into the street. The girl asks the man if he saw it. He replies that the young man clearly panicked. She says that Namgun seems to know about the devilish sword. The chief of the Golden Dragon Bureau agrees with her. He cannot believe that such a great warrior lives in the unknown. The girl orders to immediately send pigeons with a letter. She believes that they should attract such a master to their side. Then the rest of influential families will not dare to look down on them. About such villains as her abductors, you should not even talk, the girl thinks. Shi Huan is going to transfer news home, and the girl orders to send a couple of people along the trail of the devil's sword. The man objects that they need more people. She looks at him in surprise. He explains that they still have a task from the Chagall family, which must be performed in the first place. But they have already received an advance from them, and they can hire more warriors. The girl agrees with him and says that he fulfills the task, as it seems convenient to him. She asks him to find another person. The man advises her to turn to the information merchants, but she wants them to look for them. The girl says that the person he needs is a martial arts master and a thief. The tired Doko Chusen goes along the road. From the top of the hill, he looks at the city, and he understands that he has achieved the goal. In front of him is the entrance to Hebei province. Standing on the street, he carefully studies the map, and then he looks at the person walking towards him. He asks him, "Is it true that this is Qing'an County in Hebei?" The man confirms his hunch. He says that the guy is probably from another county, and then he points to him a luxurious mansion, and says that he does not even think to approach him, because he belongs to the Yang from Hebei family. They have been named for the divine spear for 100 years. But there are rumors that the group of robbers River Soroka Yang aimed at them. Doko Chusen is interested in how river robbers could get here. The interlocutor replies that the fights between light and dark fractions are not uncommon. The man says that if he still goes there, then nothing good awaits him. He says goodbye and leaves. The young man stands, thinking about his words. In the courtyard of the Yang family mansion, Hebei is an elderly man. This is the head of the family of John Chogvan. He is immersed in memories. The man sees himself not yet an old warrior with a spear in his hands. He attacks a man armed with a sword. The enemy sticks a blade into him. The man's face is skewed with rage. The old man thinks that heaven is so indifferent to everything. At the door to which he goes, there are guards. They ask John Chogvan why he came here at such a late hour. He is interested in how Sheen is there. He is informed that the young gentleman does not plan to leave his chambers. The old man says that almost 8 years have passed. Is it really not before the threat of the attack of river robbers that he will not come to his senses? Jan Chogvan shouts that the heir to the Yang family behaves unworthy. How can you be so obsessed with an unworthy woman? He is surprised when his son still answers him. The young master says that his wife is a good woman, and asks not to insult her. He is not going to leave the chambers until his father accepts their relationship. The servants are concerned about the rage of Jan Chogvan. His son hears the name of the doctor. The young man regrets that it happened. He mentally turns to his beloved, praying her to survive. And he will receive the approval of his father, and then they will certainly meet. He quietly pronounces her name, Satya. He hears screams notifying that the enemy is here. Warriors are preparing to repel the attack. A man with a blade enters the courtyard of the mansion. This is the deputy chief of the river Harsh Yan Khan. The servants become uneasy, because in front of them are a master of martial arts. They shout that the entrance here is prohibited here with dirty river robbers. The young warrior says that if a man leaves now, he will save his life. He only laughs in response and says offensive words. People listen, trying to understand what kind of sound they hear. He waves his sword, and the enemy's head falls to the ground. The robber says that he should not insult him so much. He should be treated extremely respectfully. Warriors are trying to encourage themselves by the fact that the enemy is only one. But he laughs and calls them a group of weaklings. The deputy chief of the river Harsh, Yan Khan, says that he is not alone here. Warriors appear near him. Two groups in the yard are opposite each other. He calls for revenge and the destruction of all members of the Yang family. The robbers rush to the attack. Warriors of spears meet opponents armed with swords. The robbers encourage themselves with screams, saying that the time has come. Men who protect the mansion want to surround them. The confrontation begins. A person with a spear blocks a blow with a sword. The opponents are frantically fighting, not inferior to each other in power and skill. The battle is in full swing. Both sides fight fearlessly, not sparing strength. Yan Khan tells you to find John Chogvan. He promises him to kill him with his own hands. He recalls the past of their confrontation, and he promises to himself that this time his life will definitely break off. In the family, Yang from Habai was born the god of spears. After his death, unfortunately, not a single warrior was born worthy of inheriting this title. And so it lasted 100 years until a worthy heir appeared, and it was Yang Xuan, the son of the current head of the family. His father never doubted that he would inherit this name. Naturally, all the attention of the family was riveted to him. But because of this, the guy lost freedom. It was unbearable. He abandoned the right to be the heir and escaped. And after he met a beautiful girl, like a lonely flower, it blossomed under the cover of the sun. She looked at him. He was not for her the heir to the Yang family from Hebei. She saw in him an ordinary person, and not the one who should inherit the name God of the Spear. They have a charming baby. They became a family, and he kept holding his son in his hands with tenderness. His wife was always in a hurry to help when he could not reassure the child. He acquired a family who looked at him the present. A son with whom he values more than life, and a beloved woman who is more beautiful for him than all the virgins in the world. He vowed to do everything for their happiness. Therefore, he again took up the spear and returned to the world of martial arts. Among the masters, there would be no one who would not hear about Yanmo, who owns a spear. But because of this name, his father found him. He made him return to his hometown and take the Yang family. But he was not going to follow his father's decrees so easy. In Jinan is his family. It is in this city that the place where it should be. He breaks the spear and no longer wants to engage in martial arts. On a sheet of paper, the image of the bun and the salt of the yuva. The young man looks at the portrait and says that he misses this woman. The noise outside the door attracts his attention. He understands that the invasion began. He hears a cry that the robbers attacked them. There is a battle in the courtyard of the mansion. Warriors masterfully parry the blows of attackers. Yan Khan Zorko monitors the progress of the battle. It without much difficulty reflects the attack of one of the warriors. And he says with contempt that the Yang family really does not represent anything. He screams, turning to John Chogvan to go out. At the same time, he promises that he will surely demolish his head. He mockingly adds, if he, of course, is not afraid to fight him. Having furiously waved his sword, he promises to kill all these guys. And he collapses the blade on the wounded enemy sitting at his feet. Suddenly, he sees how a young man can easily cope with his robbers. He is beside himself with rage. Ian Koa Khan asks a daredevil who he is. He replies that these are his words, and not those thieves who broke into other people's possessions. Yan Khan rushes to the attack, but his opponent masterfully owns a weapon. During the battle, opponents manage to insult each other. Strunging a strong blow, the young man seems to Yang Xin, the eldest son of the Yang family. The confrontation of warriors and robbers continues. Dako Chusen from the roof of the house watches what is happening. He recalls the words of a passerby who told him that the river robbers aimed at the Yang family. The young man thinks that the man, of course, warned him, but he could not even think that everything could happen. Initially, he wanted to call the masters of this family to battle in order to find out how much he became stronger, but now he will have to postpone with these. He decides that you need to find an inn and relax. Suddenly, the events taking place on the battlefield attract his attention. Extraordinary energy is swirling around the warrior. The young man is trying to understand what kind of aura it is. A warrior with a spear bravely opposes the enemy. Jian Shuin fearlessly stands in front of the robber. He, having heard his name, rushes on the attack. But the enemy is ready for this, and puts a spear forward. He masterfully owns them and leaves no chance to the opponent. Yan Kva Khan does not intend to retreat, and strengthens the onslaught. The spear Jian Shuin almost reaches the goal. But, despite the failure, he again makes an attempt to hit the enemy. Yan Kva Khan barely manages to evade lightning attacks. None of the opponents are going to concede. The robbers gasp amazingly and try to help the leader. But he tells them not to intervene, and sends to look for an old man. Opponents stand against each other. Yan Kva Khan mockingly says that it seems that his opponent has already lost his strength. He laughs that this is quite in the spirit of the Yang family, and he tells the young man to attack. Ian Shawina understands that he has not trained for too long. Suddenly he notices some kind of movement behind. Accompanied by servants in the yard, his father appears. The young man, despite their differences, cannot leave him in trouble. He decides to win time for him. Looking at the old man, he thinks that he needs to run. Jian Shun is unkindly squinting at his enemy. He tells him not to be distracted and continue the battle. The young man again strikes with a spear. The battle between them does not go to life, but for death. His opponent successfully defends himself with the help of the sword, while he continues to mock. Yang Shuin is already tired. Forces leave him. He decides that this is his last chance and rushes into the attack. Moving towards the enemy, he encourages himself with a cry. Ian Koa Khan invites him to say goodbye to life. The distance between them is rapidly reduced. The robber throws up his hand in which the sword is clamped. The enemy's spear is aimed at his chest. With a blow of the blade, he cuts the spear shaft. In anticipation of death, the man closes his eyes and asks for forgiveness from Yuva. The shaft falls to the ground. In the head of Yang Shuin, the idea that he will wait for his beloved in the next world. Only then his apologies reached her. The enemy's sword is already listed above his head. Men are facing face, and the course of the battle seems to be a foregone conclusion. Suddenly, Doko Chusen arises between them. With 2 fingers he stops the blade, ready to collapse on the head of one of them. The young man who managed to hide his face behind the red mask, turning to Yang Shuin, asks how the surname of the Yukva, which he had just mentioned. The robber cannot believe his eyes. He is interested in the young man. Who is he? He replies that his name is a devilish sword. Jian Shuin, carefully listening to the conversation, says that he hears this name for the first time. Yan Kva Khan asks how he dares to intervene. Does he really want to wrap all the river bandits in the world against himself? The man is trying to attack the guy, but Doko Chusen stops his hand with a wave. He says that he was going to wait until one of them wins, but he can't stand more silently and watch. The robber, without hiding anger, looks at him. He offends the guy and raises the sword. Jian Shuin screams to be careful. Doko Chusen carefully looks at the attacking enemy. He pronounces only one word: get lost. The robber inflicts an incredibly powerful blow, but his attempt was unsuccessful. The enemy, elusive for the eye, injures him. Doko Chusen hides the sword in the scabbard. He is interested in the young man as the surname of Yukva, of which he had previously mentioned. By accident, not salt. He confirms that this is so. The young man is glad that his guesses were true. Noticing that their leader lost the battle, robbers are in a hurry to hide. In the mansion of the Yang family from Habe, a feast is arranged. People are surprised, because this is not included in the habits of the head of the house. The townspeople exchange news. The main one is the defeat of river bandits. The man addresses the gossip, wondering that they are so actively discussing. He offers to chat behind a glass of wine. The head of the house said to let everyone on a feast. Doko Chusen in a red mask sits at a table on which there are many diverse dishes. He in no hurry to eat dishes. The young man asks Yang Shuin, standing in front of him, why he came. He turns to him with reverence. He recalls the moment of the celebration when the robbers left their yard. He asked the guy in a mask who he was, and how does Yuva know? The young man replied that he was the one who saved his life. Does he need to know something else? He appeals to the young master, begging him to say if he knows at least something about his wife. The head of the family of Jan Chogvan is suitable for them. He thanks the young man, and he says that if it were not for his intervention, then Jian Shuin would have been killed. He asks Doko Chusen to become their guest. Jian Shuin begs him to tell him about Yua. Doko Chusen continues to eat calmly. The young man asks him to answer. After all, he will save another life. But the young man does not want to forgive him, because all this time the woman was waiting for her husband, and he lived comfortably and did not grieve. Jian Shuin says that 8 years have passed since he had not seen his family because of his father. He was looking for them everywhere, but all his attempts were in vain. The young man is surprised by his words. He understands that he did not know something. The young man says that he searched the whole of Jinan and Shannon, but could not find his wife and child. Doko Chusen cannot believe his words. He asks if the man checked the slums in Jinan. He responds negatively, unable to believe that the Sato could be in such a terrible place. The young man asks him to calm down, but the young man cannot pull himself together. He wants to leave. Doko Musen asks what he is going to do. Jan Shuin replies that he immediately needs to pick up Yukva. The young man is interested in whether his father will do it. Does he think that the head of the family will just leave everything and will not separate them again? Doko Musen asks if he is afraid to harm his children. He advises first to convince his father, and only then meet with his family. The man is amazed at the word children, because he knows only one child. He recalls a woman with his son, and thinks that when he left, she expected another child. He whispers her name, Satya. Doko Chusen says he has one trick. The young gentleman is interested in what he wants to say this, but the young man only smiles mysteriously. In the city, people are outraged by the arrogance of bandits who dared to attack a righteous family. Jan Chogvan rejoices that they were lucky. He sits in a huge hall on an elevation. The men present here say that no one dares even to think that the greatness of the Yang family is no longer what before. The old man is pleased to listen to their speeches. He recalls how their savior said that let people consider the Yang family winners. The young man did not wish that the whole world became known about his existence. Jan Chogvan can only play along, since a real hero does not want to reveal his personality. But he is sure that in a few years the day will come when their family will again become the best fighters of Habai. He hears someone turning to him. On the threshold is a breathless servant. The old man is anxiously interested in what happened. Was river bandits attacked again? But the man responds negatively. He approaches both quietly, so that others do not hear, reports the old man. He reports that the young gentleman is practiced in martial arts. On the training ground, Doko Chusen and Jan Shuin stand against each other. The young man squeezes a spear in his hands. His opponent is armed with a sword. Jan Shuin says he will start first. The young man agrees with him. Raising a spear, the young master rushes on the attack. He warns that this is the spear of the Yang family. But Doko Chusen easily evades the weapon directed at him. Yang Shuin attacks him again and again. The spear is aimed right into the head of the young man. But he is motionless, and only at the last moment it deviates to the side. He delights the enemy's blow. Nevertheless, a man is too slow for him. Jan Shuin squeezes the shaft and is preparing to reflect the opponent's blow. He is amazed at the power of Doko Gusen, and asks to repeat again. The young man raises his sword again. Jan Shuin thinks that the trick will not work. He rushes into another attack. The opponent, not moving, is waiting for him. Doko Chusen, looking at him, thinks that, perhaps, he began to move faster. The young man raises the sword, preparing to repel the attack. The spark of their weapons meet. Jan Shuin is amazed that the young man knew where he would hit and so accurately blocked the blow. Looking at the aura surrounding the guy, he cannot understand who is facing him. The young man recognizes his defeat. Doko Chusen thinks that the bait has worked, and there are already enough training. They hear a voice asking them what is happening here. In front of them is the head of the family of Jan Chogvan. The old man is surprised that the guy who does not want to become a warrior, training again. Doko Chusen asks the young master to leave them. He leaves, and the young man praises his skill. He says that the owner of the house has a smart and gifted son. The old man is pleasantly amazed. He thinks that Jan Shuin has acquired the favor of a great man. But the young man continues to say that he is a little disappointed with his unstable state. Although he holds a spear in his hand, his thoughts are in another place. With such a mood, he will not be able to reveal his talent. In the future, he can get sick of the devil's disease. The old man is alarmed that his son has such a terrible disease. Doko Chusen says that he heard that the family of a young master is in another region. Probably because of this his heart is yearning for. Jan Chogvan asks what he should do. The young man answers, to cure the disease, it is necessary to eliminate its cause. He asks, why would not the owner of the house officially bring the family of a young master? On the street of Jinan, accompanied by warriors, a carriage is traveling. Soin welcomes Ian and wishes her good luck on the way to Habai. To the question of a girl from the family, Chigal Soin answers in the affirmative. She is the daughter of the head of the security bureau of the Golden Dragon. Namgun is silently present during their conversation. With Ian says she heard that the girl was gone. The young man, meanwhile, thinks that he should not worry about her. He is more worried that a descendant of a devilish sword appeared. He still cannot believe this news, but if it is true, a big hype will rise. The conversation of young people is watched by Chef Huan. He recalls how the lady ordered him to follow the Namgun, who knows something about the devilish sword. The man thinks that if everything works out, he will be able to restore the bureau. Soin invites the girl to the wagon, and he promises her to tell everything. The Chef Huan sits on the horse and gives the command to go. Namgun follows them. Travelers are sent to the Murim League in Hebei. On the training venue of the family mansion, the young gentleman trains. Doko Chusen recommends him not to rush and properly distribute force. Jian Shuin promises to improve. The old man is happy to watch their training. He recalls how the young man asked in a mask, will he teach his son a martial art? He agreed, but said that, first of all, he needed his permission. The old man was delighted that such a master will train Yang Shailin, which means he definitely has talent. But the old man doubted whether the proposed method really is the only chance for his son. He replied that the proposal from the great man who had great mercy to their family, worthy of attention, and he would consider him. Jan Chogvan wants to restore the authority of their family. Young people continue to train, and the old man leaves. Jan Shuin squints after him, trying to understand what he was thinking about. Doko Chusen again makes him a remark, and he promises to improve. In the evening, when the streets have already begun to get dark, the father and son meet in the courtyard of the mansion. The young master asks, was he called the test at such a late hour? The old man replies, does he really need a reason to meet his father? Jan Shoan says, if nothing happens, then he will leave. The old man begins the conversation with the fact that the master of the devil's sword praised him, and he should stay closer to him. The son asks what follows from this. Do he need to steal his secret techniques now? The father complains that the son is already an adult and thinks like a child. To which he replies that excessive greed is the disposition of his father. The old man is outraged that the son is trying to teach him. But the young gentleman asks, is he really not only he appropriated someone else's fame after a recent fight? John Chogvan is justified by the fact that the hero himself did not want to reveal his personality. Therefore, he only fulfilled his request. It so happened that their family went to fame. Jan Shuin accuses his father of just standing and watched others fight. He says that this is not enough stolen glory. He also wants to borrow the technique of martial arts. If they find out about this, people will point a finger at their family. The man says that only today he will pretend that he has not heard this. The old man objects that it was the master's proposal. The son is surprised, and John Chogvan says that he himself decided to transfer some techniques to him. Yan Shuin is perplexed. Why is this a master? He recalls their conversation about one trick. The father says that the young man in return set him one condition. He said that now their priority is the deliverance of Yang Shuin from the disease of the devil's heart. He tells his son to go to Jinan and bring his family. A man cannot believe what he heard. The old man confirms that he allows his son to bring them to the Yang clan. The excited Jian Shuin barely restrains his tears. Doko Chusen from the balcony watches their conversation. The young man decides that he should leave the hospitable house. He goes to the gates of the Yang family. Suddenly he hears him naughty. Looking around, the young man sees men who predicted that he will try to leave without saying goodbye. Doko Chusen asks for forgiveness. He did not want to bother them, and did not expect to face them. He says that those who met should part, and those who parted will meet again. Looking at the men, the young man is glad that he managed to reconcile them. The young master thanks him. The old man asks why he leaves so quickly. Didn't something suit him? He says he leaves for a short while. He has a personal matter nearby. The young man assures the owner of the house that his proposal is in force, and on the way back he will go to them. Men understand that such a great person has a lot of things, and they invite him to visit them again when he is free. The old man holds out a bag of money to him, asking him to accept his modest gift. The young man gratitude accepts the offering and says goodbye to them. Men with reverence bow to him. Jan Shuin pronounces gratitude. His father reproaches him for not going on the road yet, and rushes him as soon as possible to go to Jinan for his family. Doko Chusen sets off. Night. Around the fire, tents are broken. Soin comes out of one of them. She trembles with the cold. The girl decides that it is best to warm up at the fire. She goes to the burning fire, near which, despite the later time, sits with En. She asks the girl what she is doing here. With En is surprised by her appearance. She says she thought, everyone is already sleeping. Soin complains that she woke up from the cold. With En laughing, he replies that she was also frozen. Soin doubts that this is a real reason. With En says that she just for the first time is so far from home. Her interlocutor supports her, saying that she understands her. With En, he says that she herself sought to leave. She explains that the father wants her to marry for the sake of family prosperity. Soin asks who her fiancé is, but with En says that he himself does not really know anything. The girl is interested in whether there is someone in her heart. With En answers negatively. At the same time, she recalls Doko Chusen, but he does not want to admit his feelings even to himself. Soin, looking at her, thinks that probably there is unrequited love here. The girl thinks that he is still too young. However, like herself, She says that her interlocutor will easily forget a simple guy. With En, he looks at her inquiringly. She asks what Soin is thinking about now. She replies that she just envies her. To the question, why? She says that she herself does not know. With En, he is indignant at the strange speeches of the interlocutor and goes to sleep. She says goodbye to Soy until morning. The girl who remained sitting by the fire understands that she really envies her. She thinks whether it is possible for her to return to those days when she smiled so much. She decides that now it doesn't matter. She should attract a master named a devil's sword to the side of their bureau at all costs. Even if you have to use marriage as a bait. A large clawed paw steps on the grass. A huge mouth shines with sharp fangs. The alerty guy peers into the darkness. A huge tiger comes out to meet him.